In a lush, sun-drenched valley hemmed in by towering mountains, a flawless white dragon swoops down with wings flaring wide, while other dragons, green, pink, and orange, circle in, all eyes locked on the newcomer. The story snaps to a glowing magic circle etched into the ground, where a young woman with long, light blue hair declares they've arrived in the Dragon Kingdom, while a young man stands there, frozen in awe, as the great white dragon confirms it's finally their destination. A man Raid locked his eyes ahead, and pure excitement lit up his face, like he couldn't believe what was happening. The woman gave him a proper welcome, and just like that, the moment the world turned to Dragon Tamer officially began. Stands beside the blue-haired woman, wearing a satisfied grin, like the universe just paid him back for every good deed. The scene rockets to the divine dragon empire, Laziria, and high over the grand capital, the Dragon Knight Corps surges through the skies on their draconic mounts, standing guard as the nation's terrifying shield. In that same country, deep inside a rough, rustic stable, a massive dragon sprawls in its stall, just resting there for now. Raid drops to one knee in front of the creature, face set and grim, eyeing the way its scales have dulled. Then he feels the real weakness hiding in its guts. He whips his gaze toward the dragon, Faye, and demands answers. Has she been burning herself out on the latest deployments? In this world, people can wield special abilities called skills, and Raid's family has handed down the Dragon Tamer skill for generations. The dragon snaps its eye open, and you can tell Raid has finally caught on how bad it really is. Using his Dragon Tamer skill, he hears every roar like a voice pounding inside his own heart. He's out here serving the Empire as a dragon caretaker, but he knows the Dragon Knights are abusing the creatures, pushing them past their limits until they're worn out and trembling. And this is the third time they've pulled something this reckless. Rage clenches his fist as he vows, "I can't let this slide," and promises he'll march it straight to the higher-ups. As he storms off, Faye's warning clangs in his head. Protecting them only traps him deeper, so now he's dubbed a salary thief. Then his rage spikes when he overhears two knights sneering, saying it must be nice getting paid just for petting dragons, blaming him for their lousy condition, and even promising to report his negligence to his majesty. He ignores their taunts and keeps working. Then a supplement gets poured into a bucket of water, and a calm little thought steadies him, reminding him this is just how it's always been, and none of it should shake him. He presses a special potion into one of the Sky Dragon's hands, praying it'll finally ease its suffering, and you can see the weight of his worries written all over his face. His mind drifts to the Sky Dragon legacy his family cherished and handed down, and dread tightens his chest, because if this keeps going, the Dragon Knights will crush everything and push them until they're ruined. A dragon senses his breaking spirit and snaps him out of it, telling him not to spiral over it, because no matter how hard he pushes, his efforts will come to nothing, and that sudden advice leaves him stunned for a beat. Just as the two of them trade a quick word, the stable erupts. Other dragons shout his name, one begging for a taste of his homemade potion, another demanding fresh straw bedding, and a third just wants to talk, even though everyone knows he's got work waiting. He drags a hand through his hair, completely swamped, because he's got around 50 dragons breathing down his neck, and he resigns himself to the same nightmare, overtime until midnight once again. But the exhaustion finally breaks into a shaky, determined smile, because his love for those creatures hits harder than his own fatigue ever will. With fresh determination in his chest, he storms into work, hauling new straw for the Sky Dragons and brewing bottle after bottle of his special potions. After grinding through the whole night, he collapses, totally wiped out. Then out of nowhere, a court official storms in, shouts his name, and declares that the Emperor himself is calling him right now. They rush him into a massive throne room, where he drops to his knees before the 37th Emperor of Lazaria. A servant steps forward and thunders, "Redraisen, bow before the Emperor." From his throne, the Emperor stared down at the kneeling young man. Then without a shred of ceremony, he called Raid by name and announced that, starting today, Raid was dismissed. He just froze in total disbelief, the Emperor's words still booming across the massive throne room. He tried to protest, stammering out a question, but the Emperor snapped him shut, saying the nation's Sky Dragons were already obedient, that anyone could care for them, and that raiding was nothing more than a salary fee. Raid snapped back, shouting that the dragons weren't docile by luck. They were calm because he'd used his Dragon Tamer skill to reach out and forge a real bond with them. But the Emperor just leaned on his throne with that dead stare expression and brushed the whole thing off as pure foolishness. A man beside the throne leaned in and snapped that if they were going to burn money on an incompetent oaf like Raid, they might as well buy new Sky Dragons. Then the Emperor nodded along, and the advisor's furious denial hit like a gut punch. You couldn't even talk to dragons, and that thought froze Raid in terror. The advisor's words kept crashing through his mind, ridiculous. This guy's stubborn obsession with taming Sky Dragons had already stranded who knows how many, and in an empire powered by the Dragon Knight Corps, that kind of clueless folly was unthinkable, even for the Emperor and his nobles. The Emperor's voice thundered, screaming that the false reports and dereliction of duty were unforgivable. Then he snapped that these crimes usually earn a death sentence, but he'd spare the Empire's soil from the filthy blood of an outlaw raid. Instead, he slammed down the final verdict. Raid was being cast out of the Empire for good. Kneeling on that freezing floor, his fist clenched hard in his palm, he knew, deep down, this was wrong. His thoughts snapped back to another time, back when his late father, the dragon tamer Caretaker, and the previous emperor were tight friends, their bonds stronger than any title. Then the old emperor died out of nowhere, his son took the throne, and the chancellor got swapped out just as suddenly. The truth hit him like a punch to the gut, staring at the emperor on his throne, ringed by his court. He finally got it. Every single one of them was in on it together. Knights seized him and cast him out like trash, slamming him to the ground as a cold final command rang in his ears. Never, ever again was he allowed to step onto the Empire's soil. Beneath the moonlight, he slipped into the dragon pens and brushed a gentle hand over a towering snout, calling out for Faye, only for the great dragon to stir and rumble, and when he asked what was wrong, Raid could only choke out an apology for waking them all. Then he snapped out the devastating news to the gathered sky dragons. He'd been fired from his job as a caretaker. He made it crystal clear this wasn't a simple dismissal at all. It was an official exile, and he'd come to deliver his last goodbyes. The timing hit like a slap, but he already understood why. The Empire was terrified he might spill secrets about the sky dragons to another country, so pursuers would likely come for him fast. And fake, he couldn't even breathe, he kept staring at it like it had to be a joke. The moment they heard it, every other dragon exploded with rage, roaring at him to break their chains and fling open the doors, even swearing they'd back his escape and unleash chaos for him. He shot his hands up fast, shouting for everyone to cool off, and warned them that any rebellion like that would end with an execution. He told them straight up, even if he could break the chains, you still couldn't count on them getting away. Those Empire anti-dragon barriers would blast some right out of the sky. His face softened with raw sorrow. He was grateful for their loyalty, but he couldn't stand the thought of dragging them into danger, not when the dragons were the very ones his father had helped raise. The dragons suddenly went stone still, their faces crumpling with disappointment, and one of them, voice barely above a whisper, asked if this meant they'd never see him again. He spun back to them one last time, wearing a soft, heartbroken smile, then thanked each of them for everything they'd shared and sent them off with nothing but warm wishes. He strides away from the stables, and those sky dragons stare at him with crushing sorrow as he leaves. His fist tightens, he grips onto his resolve and forces himself to keep moving, because for Faye and the others, he refuses to let their grief drag on any longer. With that thought, he bolts into the night, leaving the Imperial banner miles behind, swearing to himself that he'll get out no matter what it costs. Elsewhere, a young woman with long, flowing hair leans in and whispers his name. Her voice trembles with pure, aching concern. The whole escape nearly screams through the air. 2 Imperial guards hear it. One blurts, "What was that?" while the other shuts it down, barking, "Forget it, keep moving." And while they're busy brushing it off, Raid slips right past them, his hooded cloak swallowing him into the darkness. He pushes into a thick forest, then slams on the brakes, because ahead, under the moonlight, a lone woman with long, pale hair stands waiting in a clearing. He's stunned by her ethereal beauty, and his mind instantly whispers, "A moon fairy." Then panic claws at him. She's standing all alone out here, and monsters are coming. He freezes, holding his breath, waiting. He pushes deeper into Walren's great forest, and the twisted training trails his father showed him come flooding back, because this is the perfect trap to shake the pursuers, unless they're stuck on that same predetermined path, in which case they'll just circle right back to where they started. As he charges down the path, he spots her again, the mysterious woman. The moment she senses him closing in, she whips around, and a shocked gasp bursts from her mouth. They face each other in total silence, an exiled tamer and a gorgeous stranger locked in place, while he can't stop wondering who she is and why she's staring at him like it means something. Deep in a dark forest, Raid stumbled upon a glowing blonde woman, so mysterious she practically lit the shadows herself, and the second he saw her, his mind snapped to one question: who was she? Out of nowhere, a monstrous wolf-like beast with razor claws and bared teeth lunges into existence behind her, screaming so fiercely the whole forest shakes. The beast rockets forward and the woman jolts with a sharp gasp, but Raid snaps into action, a glowing magical seal flashing right before his hand as he swears it won't touch her. He spots it immediately, a high kobold. Leon unleashed his power on purpose, calling it a sealing art. Then dragon binding snapped into place as glowing chains tore from a magic sigil and bound the snarling high kobold in a tight, light-forged grip. He unleashes a powerful cry, yanks the chains tight, and the magical constructs bite deep into the monster's flesh, locking it in place for good. The high cobalt buckles under the crushing pressure, its neck snapping with a sickening crack as dark blood blasts from the wound, and the elf woman, right from a safe distance, stares in stunned, pure amazement. He whips around and brushes it off, saying it's no big deal. But he then reveals his clan has mastered these sealing arts to pin down rampaging dragons, and those dragon-binding chains can drop even the mightiest monsters in an instant. Still, the real reason he's talking is simple. He asks if she's hurt, because for a cute girl like her to say, he saved her again hits him right in the heart. As she rushes closer, a shimmering magical circle erupts at her feet, and she tells him it's only natural he doesn't recognize her. Then she leans in and dares him to remember if she shows her other form. Raid whips his gaze back to her, totally stunned, like he has no idea what she's talking about. Her power finally snaps into focus, an insanely advanced transformation magic that shrugs off the usual rules of mass and volume, letting her take a four-legged form and sprout wings that move on their own. She ripped away her disguise and revealed a breathtaking white-scaled ancient dragon, the absolute apex of dragonkind, and Raid froze, staring up in stunned awe as a single bead of sweat slid down his face, overwhelmed by just how vast and real it looked. This creature was nothing like the Empire's sky dragons, a brand new breed, an ancient dragon. That sounded impossible. Then it hit him. Was this the same ancient dragon he'd saved 3 years ago? While his mind churned, the dragon shattered the silence, her voice roaring with ancient power. She declared herself Luna and said she'd come back the moment she heard of his trouble. When Raid demanded who sent her, she answered without hesitation, the sky dragons he'd raised like family back in the Empire. They were stunned, staring like, how on earth did they pull this off? Luna leaned in and said, we poured our voices straight into our roars, then boom, the message hit her. They talked about his character and begged her to grant him the wings of salvation before his pursuers closed in. Everything snapped into place. Ray finally got it. Those roars and growls weren't aimed at him at all. They were cries meant for Luna, and he couldn't help but feel deep, real admiration for how honestly the dragons showed up. Then it hit him. He remembered hearing the words Dragon Princess, and he demanded to know if they were really about her. That spark of resolve burned inside him, and if he ever ran into those dragons again, he'd make damn sure he thanked them. She confirmed his gut feeling because she wasn't just any girl, she was the Dragon King's daughter. Yep, the Dragon Princess. Ray went completely silent. His father had once warned him that ancient dragons had royal heirs who could unite all of dragonkind, but he never, ever thought he'd witness it firsthand with his own eyes. A grin tugged at his lips as he processed the wild twists of fate, because the person he'd saved by pure chance 3 years back had turned out to be royalty. Luna told him that when they first met, sickness had swollen her throat so she couldn't say thank you out loud, so to settle that debt, and because the ancient dragons needed his power, she formally invited him to come with her to the Dragon Nation, and for Raid, who had been stuck wondering what to do next, her offer landed like a lifeline. To show just how badly she meant it, she dropped her huge head toward him, holding her breath as she waited for his answer. Raid thrust his hand onto the ancient dragon's colossal, scaled leg, then locks in his choice, telling her he'll be counting on her. Under the starry sky, she leans in and asks if he's ready, and he shoots back a solid yes. Then her massive wings snap wide, roaring them toward flight. Meanwhile, deep inside the lavish Lazarian Imperial palace, the Emperor lounges with a goblet in hand, grinning like he already won, because once Raid's huge salary disappears, he can finally feed his real craving. Buying even more sky dragons. He takes another sip, smirking like he already knows the pursuers he sent have silenced Raid for good. His smug grin snaps in half as a violent tremor rips through the room, launching his goblet flying through the air. As the shaking roars louder, the royal advisor bursts in, sobbing that everything's gone deadly serious. Then the Emperor yelps as a nearby decorative urn tumbles, smashes, and splinters across the floor. With his face drained of color and sweat pouring down, the advisor blurts that this is treason on the spot. Then when the Emperor presses him, he snaps back that whatever's fueling the chaos has to be crushed right now, and he orders the Dragon Knights to be summoned. Right before his order can land, a swirling vortex of dark energy erupts in the middle of the throne room, crashing the moment to a halt. Energy surges together, and out of that blazing depth, a colossal dragon head rams forward, eyes locked on the terrified Emperor. His eyes snap past the intruder and whip to the outside, then reality shatters. A sky packed with dragons is diving right onto his palace, and he can only stammer, stunned out of his mind. He could only stare in terror as Faye the dragon let out a bone-rattling roar that made the throne room shudder like it was about to collapse. The draconic assault hit with brutal force, and his royal guard scattered like leaves in a thunderstorm, broken and useless, their armor offering zero protection against that overwhelming power. He clawed for control, screaming that he ruled the Empire, and ordered the Dragon Knights to seize the beasts, only to have terrified reports crash in immediately. The sky dragons wouldn't even let the knights get aboard. Then it loomed over him, its voice thundering with ancient power, explaining that a dragon's hearing is razor-sharp, that it had already caught every whisper inside the castle. The beast snapped that the Emperor's decision to cast out raids was unforgivable, because family was everything to them, and even after that, the Emperor dared to seek its life, so it sealed its retribution as his fate. With one last bone-chilling command, the dragon bared his maw and blasted a brutal gust, smashing the Emperor backward as his crown flew clean off his head. Outside, the attack didn't slow for a second. Waves of dragons pounded the palace, blasting beams of pure destruction that ripped straight through the Imperial walls. Far from the chaos, a brutal realization hit Raid like a punch. He finally got it. He'd been the one holding back those ferocious sky dragons by himself, so why did it all happen like this? Riding on Luna through the blazing night sky, that question kept slamming into his thoughts. Why did the sky dragons suddenly lose control? Luna's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. She leaned in and asked if tagging along with her to the Dragon Nation meant he'd chosen her as his partner, and the question hit him so hard he just sputtered the only word he could manage. He blurted out his stance fast, cheeks burning as he insisted he wasn't a dragon knight at all, and there was no way he'd team up with some ancient dragon, and that denial instantly left Luna stunned into silence. Luna's words hit him like a punch. She told him that ever since he saved her 3 years ago, he'd been taming her, and now that he won't officially choose her, she sees it as cruel teasing. His mind spun as the truth hit him. Tame meant placing a target under your sway, controlling it, so how on earth could he possibly tame an ancient dragon with a single skill? A brutal shock slammed into him. He'd kept Luna under his control for 3 years straight. When she finally stood before him in her human form, she swore he'd forced her into tameness and chained her up against her will, even if it started as some accidental side effect of his healing. He got what she meant. If the target was tamed, there was no way it could truly defy its master. Guilt slammed into him, and he rushed to apologize, admitting it must have been horrible for her. Then he immediately offered to let her out of the whole bunch. She calmly said it wouldn't be necessary, and Raid stared at her, stunned by the refusal. He was utterly thrown off by her reasoning. Luna said taming an ancient dragon was impossible for ordinary humans, and since someone of his caliber had done it, she had zero complaints, yet he still couldn't shake the feeling that she would have hated it a lot more. As they kept sprinting through the sky, she leaned in and confessed, when she was in this tame form, his weight on her back supercharged her flight powers like crazy. She hit the ground and said her power spikes when he's close, because if the taming gets released out of nowhere, she could get dragged down fast, and that would be a disaster. With a gentle shimmer, she snapped back into her humanoid form, stepped right toward him, and started to speak. Her face softened, but her resolve didn't budge. She met his eyes and demanded, straight up, whether he'd take responsibility for binding her for the last 3 years. With her demand hanging in the air, Raid's thoughts spun out of control, his chest tight with panic. Then, without warning, an unstoppable wish lit up inside him as his eyes shut, knowing he just wanted to stay by her side. He replayed her smile in his head, draconic and elven both, and yeah, it had been 3 long years, but that gentle pull from her still crushed him, because the idea of refusing her and watching her get sad again was unbearable. He figured ancient dragons prize raw strength above everything, and honestly, that's the only way Luna, of all beings, could have swallowed the idea of getting tamed by something that strong. After accepting his role, he followed her straight in, and she guided him to a jaw-dropping vista where other dragons sliced through the sky. Then she turned back with a warm smile and welcomed him to his partner's homeland, the Dragon Nation. When Raid finally stepped into the land of dragons, his eyes went wide with pure awe, while Luna, still in her elf form, spread her arms and proudly welcomed him home, as the other dragons stared, hungry with curiosity. Psyche fired off a stunning command. She made one of the dragons roar in pure shock, and that blast told everyone the princess had brought back a human man. The other dragons started whispering to each other, instantly clocking Raid as the same one from the princess's stories, and they couldn't help but notice how close he seemed to Luna. A flustered Luna hurriedly shooed them to quiet down as she guided Raid straight toward a massive stone entrance. Side by side, the cavern sank into darkness, then a deep voice declared Luna had returned safely. Raid, right there beside her, straightened up and formally announced his own arrival to the father he addressed, whose shadow loomed from the darkness below. A shadowy figure peeled back the darkness, revealing a colossal white dragon whose sheer presence punched the air out of Raid's lungs, even if just for a second. The beast greeted him like an old prophecy coming true, calling himself Alburn, the Dragon King ruling this land. Then he looked at Raid and admitted the truth. Raid wasn't just a descendant of the dragon tamers, he was the one who'd saved his daughter. The Dragon King kept talking, telling Raid he could finally breathe easy, because he couldn't just ignore the person who saved his daughter's illness and cared for the sky dragons across the empire. With a respectful kneel, Raid Dyson introduced himself and thanked the king for taking him in, assuming the king already knew why he was there. Alburn cut the formal stuff and tossed the stiff preamble aside, then declared for now Raid needed to rest and motioned for Luna to take the lead. But right before he took off, Raid froze, gazed up at the towering beast, and with raw reverence in his voice, asked the Dragon King for permission to touch his scales. As Luna grilled him about his weird request, he thrust his hand forward and Albin stayed icy calm, giving the nod instantly. Raid breathed out a quiet thanks, then gently laid his hand on the Dragon King's scaled hide. The moment her gloved fingers touched the scales, a gentle glow burst from the exact point of contact, and Luna's eyes flew wide in pure, stunned disbelief. She stared, jaw dropped, as her father's scales started glowing again, shining brighter with every second. The young man who caused the shift stepped forward and laid it all out. He told the Dragon King he'd spotted how his scales didn't shine like the other elder dragons, so he suspected the magic wasn't flowing right, and he admitted Alburn had already seen straight through his plans. With just one touch, the Dragon King's whole body lit up, shimmering with fresh, unstoppable life. The great dragon poured out his gratitude, admitting he'd been anything but idle and barely had a moment to rest, while Luna, smiling softly, chimed in that this outcome was exactly what you'd expect since Raid was under her watch. He shot back that her words made him grin, because that's just what a dragon tamer does his duty. Luna, though, couldn't stop staring, still blown away by the raw, impossible power it took to mend an elder dragon's body. Her thoughts snapped into a brutal realization, and her face went pale with shock. She blurted out that back in the Empire they called her a salary thief, and the words left her utterly rattled. She balled her fists and let her new conviction roar through her voice, declaring the Empire had seriously and unmistakably underestimated Raid's true power. As they turned their backs and headed away from the Dragon King, her fury kept building. She couldn't wrap her head around what the Empire's leaders could have been thinking, convinced no tamer was more capable than Rape. The two of them kept strolling through the valley sanctuary, hemmed in by towering cliffs and packed with other dragons. The resident dragons just stare as they pass, their faces split between sharp curiosity and calm, watchful thought. Luna, still in her elven form, sweeps a hand across everything around them and tells Raid, "This is where you'll live now," and he studies the place with a soft smile, wishing he'd been able to give Fae and the sky dragons homes with space like this too. Right after her gesture, his eyes lock onto a jaw-dropping sight, a colossal tree so enormous that a whole village of wooden houses and platforms clings to its branches. And there they stand at its base, totally dwarfed by the sheer scale. He hauls himself up a towering ladder, inching along the trunk, eyes blazing with wonder as the world opens beneath him. Then he's stunned by the swarm of tiny houses and blurts out to Luna, "So, do any other races live here besides the elder dragons?" What? The moment he steps onto the wooden platform, he spots them, several people with sharp feline ears and swishing tails, and he knows the truth instantly. It's the cat spirit tribe. Luna spills the truth. The cat spirit tribe are mysterious beastfolk who live so close to spirits they feel almost untouchable. And yeah, they're famous for raw, explosive muscle, but for them, magic can't handle one simple thing they can't use match. He takes in this new truth, and the memory hits him hard. He'd already heard the tribe was wiped out. Luna calls his name, but he's stuck in a storm of thoughts, nowhere near the present. Out of nowhere, a cheerful young girl from the tribe, flower tucked in her hair, breaks into a big, excited wave at them, grinning like sunshine as she asks what's brought them to her village today. Her burst of energy knocks the wind out of Raid. She's standing right there in front of him and Luna, tail twitching like a metronome, waiting with bated breath for their answer. Her eyes blaze with excitement the second she recognizes Raid, and she blurts out that he's the human they've been talking about. Luna shoots a hand to Raid's arm and introduces him as the very guy she mentioned earlier. Beaming, the girl flashes a warm smile and introduces herself as Rona, welcoming him like family. Then she tells Luna she'd already known the dragon's nest would be brutal for a human, so she's arranged for Raid to move into their settlement starting today. She beams and blurts, "Raid, big brother," and it snaps him out of his nerves. He sputters, asking what on earth she's doing, but she just wants to know if he's okay. He assures her he's fine, he's only been caught off guard. He bounces right back, shakes her hand, and promises he can't wait to be with her from now on. Roanna nods back, all smiles. Then, as her gaze drops and a worried thought flickers across her face, he feels it and asks, "What's wrong?" Without even answering, Rona's eyes shot wide. She blurted that he reeks of dragons, like a whole chaotic parade, maybe 100 kinds. Raid then confirmed he'd cared for the sky dragons all on his own, and that made Luna's expression soften. She felt vindicated, like her judgment of him was dead on. That sudden revelation slams into Raid like a light bulb. Those target attain boosts don't just work up close, they have to stay alive even across huge distances. Luna nods and confirms it, and honestly, it makes sense why her power has exploded over the last 3 years, because all he ever does is talk about it. While they talk, Roanna leans in, eyes sharp and ears locked, whispering to herself as a terrifying thought clicks. If Luna's power exploded after the taming, then maybe Raid could tame her too and make her stronger. Right beside her, Raid's hand clenches into a tight fist. Her calm thoughts suddenly explode into a desperate plea. She whips around, darts to Raid's side, and blurts that she wants to be tamed, begging to become stronger. Raid goes speechless and asks what she's doing, but she swears it's okay, explaining that her tribe reads character by scent, and somehow she can tell he isn't a bad person, even if being tamed would mean she'd be forced to obey every command. As her pleading cuts deeper, Raid snaps his gaze to Luna and demands answers. Why is this child clawing for strength like her life depends on it? Luna's face falls into something heavy, and she finally tells the truth. The cat spirit tribe got driven out of their homeland after a brutal wave of monsters, and they had to flee to the land of dragons just to stay alive. Roanna snaps to Luna's side and erupts with a passionate cry, swearing this is exactly why she aches for the power to take her homeland back, and she devotes every single day to training her for that dream. Her determination is blazing clear as she stands unshaken, bearing the weight of her whole race on her shoulders. Raid can see the desperation in her eyes. If there's even a chance at quick power, she'd grab it without a second thought. Still, some part of him screams that she needs to be more careful. Raid hears her plea, whips around to face Rona and Luna, and says he gets exactly what's going on. Yeah, he's a dragon tamer, but he already told Rona he can't promise he'll tame it, and she has to live with that risk, and without a second thought, Rona agrees. He flashed a smile and admitted her words lit a fire under him to succeed, and Rona grinned right back, saying there was no way she'd be harder to manage than taking care of 100 dragons. With everyone's nod secured, he planted himself across from Rona inside the huge chamber, snapped his magic circle open on the floor, and unleashed his power, kicking off the taming ritual. With magic swelling all around, he and Roanna snapped their eyes shut, locked in tight, because they had to sync their very life wavelengths. A blinding burst of light tore through the circle, screaming, "It's connected." The instant the link snapped into place. Under ethereal light, he launched into the incantation, forging their bond, swearing her blood would be his, and her very functions would become his. He finished the ritual and slammed the unbreakable contract shut with his final words. Then a collar of pure magical energy snapped into place around Roanna's neck. Once the taming was done, he leaned in and demanded, "How does it feel?" Rona gasped, grabbed her neck like she couldn't believe it, then clenched her fists. She could feel power roaring to life inside her. She couldn't wait to put her new strength to the test, so she boldly declared she'd try it right now and strode over to a thick wooden post, while he watched with tight nerves, realizing that the branch was as thick as his own arm. In the blink of an eye, she slammed the post, and that thick wood cracked apart from one effortless hit. Luna was left breathless by the sheer display of power. Raid, though, was totally stunned, his face locked in shock at that incredible result. Rona stares at her own hand, eyes wide with pure awe as fresh power floods through her, and then she whispers, "So this is how big I really am," finally understanding the scale of her strength. She whips around, eyes blazing with admiration, and tells him point-blank that she was right all along, because he's no ordinary person. Her energy never fades. She keeps nudging him, asking him to train with her the moment he's free, insisting she wants to get even stronger. Luna watches the whole thing from a short distance. Far away inside a cold, detached palace of the Lasseria Empire, the Emperor slams onto his throne and listens to a grim report. Then two of his men burst in, frantic, saying that since the rampage, the Sky Dragons have gone completely rogue and won't obey the Dragon Knights, leaving the Empire's borders wide open to monster attacks. Rage tightens his jaw as he snarls, "Yeah, I already know." Fuming through his teeth, the advisor strides in with a shaky little smile and tells him straight up, since Raid's body was never found, they have to treat this like he's still alive. The advisor leans in and tells the Emperor this. The Sky Dragons only went wild after the raid, and the one with the rare gift to talk to them has already ditched the Empire. Then he pushes the plan hard. Bring the raid back and use him to shut those dragons down. Then he leans in close, smirking, and asks if His Majesty truly believes the ridiculous claim that Raid can talk to dragons. The Emperor sinks into deep thought, then his advisor hammers the idea home. Once Raid has quieted the dragons, they'll seize control again and wipe Raid from the board, and suddenly that plan clicks as realization flares in the Emperor's eyes. Once he made up his mind, the Emperor roared his orders to the guards, "Go hunt down Raid and haul that salary thief straight back to the Empire, where every single coin he took will be worked off, no exceptions." And as he barks the command, a nasty grin crawls across his face, bubbling with satisfaction because Raid forced him to bow, even if it was just for show. While the Emperor's malice creeps in from the shadows, Raid stays clueless, calmly patting Rowan's head as she grins, until a bitter thought snaps into place. One day, he'll collect what's owed and take the Emperor's head as payment for all his past suffering. In a world ruled by dragons, Raid slowly finds his footing in his brand new life, living side by side with the mighty beasts and the members of the cat spirit tribe. As the others stare, he sets his glowing, homemade potion on the ground. He gulped down the potion, then swung up onto the back of the battered dragon, telling it, "This will sting a bit, hang in there." He pours the liquid straight onto the wound, and the elder dragon lets out a sharp, pained grunt, jerking back like the pain burned right through him. The cat spirit tribe didn't just nod, they gathered around him to thank him for real, and they told him the truth. Their clan pours almost all their mana into physical power, so brewing potions feels like a brutal uphill fight. Still, they pressed a potion into his hands as a small but heartfelt payment for the food, clothes, and shelter he's given them. Anna's beaming like Big Brother Raid is here, so the dragons are safe, but Luna, watching from the side, can't shake the sting of how long it's been since anyone saw her efforts. Then emotion hits hard. She grabs Raid's hands and pleads with all her heart that she really wants to stay in this country forever. Guys shine as she swears they'll all lend him their strength, right when Raid locks eyes with her, and his face sparks with a brand new resolve. He stares at their interlocked hands, and a soft smile blooms across his face, because in that moment, he's 100% sure Luna is his partner, and he knows he needs to seriously consider staying here for good. Later, as they stare out over the land, Luna's playful vibe snaps into seriousness. She tells him monsters have gotten bolder, creeping closer to the Dragon Nation, and Raid backs her up, saying this is exactly what's been worrying him. Just as his mind races, the elder dragon he'd saved cuts in, thanking him again for the potions, and brushing off its wounds as nothing but scratches. Then its voice turns cold. Monsters are closing in on the elder dragons, something that has never happened before, and that scares the living daylights out of him. Raid listens, and his worry sinks deeper with every word. He swallowed his pride, counted every debt he owed the Dragon Nation, and swore he'd do more than just pay back, he'd fight to help its people. With a confident grin, he declared his plan. He'd personally tame every big monster lurking nearby. His declaration left both Luna and Rowana frozen in stunned silence. True to his promise, he marched Luna straight into the forest right away. They stumbled upon a gigantic winged beast lounging in a clearing, and Luna could only gasp in pure disbelief. The griffin beast snapped its head around, those razor-sharp eyes glaring like it meant to attack. Luna, now with Rona at her side, pressed him on whether he truly meant to tame every monster, while Rona fired back with her worries. Taming beasts wasn't the same as battling them, and powerhouses like griffins could simply shrug off taming spells with sheer magic strength. He flashed a calm smile, brushed off their worries, and told them to sit tight. Then he started stalking straight toward the creature. The dragon tamer strode forward, his cloak snapping in the breeze, while the griffin locked in its ruthless gaze on him. Before the beast could even react, he shot his hand forward. Then a glowing magical sigil snapped into the air, and he announced, loud and certain, that it was too late for it to run. He called on the art above his head, and the dragon-binding chains burst free, bright, blazing shackles snapping out of the sigil to grab the griffin's leg in an instant. He finishes the incantation and declares he's forging a bond with the griffin. Its blood becomes his, its power becomes his own. Then those magical chains lunge out and snap tight around the creature. Light chains snap together around the griffin's neck, forging a blazing collar. Then, right here and now, he sealed the unbreakable contract. Once the contract clicked shut, the light dimmed, and that griffin's rage instantly melted. Now it's calm, docile, and gently nuzzling Ray's hand, letting out a soft, little contented sound from its beak as it stands there beside him like it totally belongs. He whips around and shouts that the taming worked, telling his friends they can come out. From the woods, Luna and Rowana step into view, and Luna's jaw drops as she realizes he handled a griffin with mind-blowing ease, like a dragon tamer torn straight from the legends. The shock hits harder when he casually drops that, during his training, he tamed a whole stack of griffins, and the moment the truth lands, everyone is left completely, utterly speechless. She storms in, slams him with the fact that his moves are reckless, because even elder dragons can barely handle beasts like that, and she demands, "So what now? You're just gonna drive it off?" He stays calm and answers, "No." Rona's shocked by his simple denial, so she presses him harder. Then Raid finally drops the truth. He's ordering the griffin to stand down and not lift a finger against the Dragon Nation. Still not getting it, she blurts out, "So what's the point of taming it?" He nods and explains that griffin-like monsters claim territory, and every other monster instinctively skirts around those zones like danger itself. Luna suddenly clicks. His words mean that if the griffin turns into their ally, it'll stand guard over the whole region for them. So when Ray sees her get it, he decides, if it's staying here, it's getting a name. He stares up at the majestic beast and declares its name, Fawn. Then the griffin throws its wings wide and unleashes a thunderous cry, like it's accepting who it's become. Freshly christened, Fawn bursts into the sky, and Raid swings in, calling out, introducing himself like he means business. With his first guardian locked down, he turns to Luna and Rona, and they burst with cheers. Then Raid drops his huge ambition. He's going to tame every big monster near the Dragon Nation, one by one, just like this. Raid kept his promise in absurdly short order. He used the downtime between fights to whip 20 massive monsters into shape in just half a day, and with those beasts guarding the borders, the Dragon Nation's monster problem was nearly wiped out for good. For this massive win, the Dragon King didn't just smile. He rained rewards on Raid, a mountain of treasure, a fat monthly paycheck of 100 gold coins, and a fortune so wild it's almost impossible to believe. In the streets of Lazaria's capital, people whisper and eye the sky as the Imperial Sky Dragon's patrol roars overhead, because the Dragon Caretaker was just cut loose from the Imperial court, and now everyone's betting his sudden absence is why monsters are creeping closer to the city. Discontent crawls right into the military. Inside a tavern, two knights are spilling their guts, cursing how their forces are falling apart. The sky dragons, pushed by brutal techniques, are seconds from breaking, and their healing potion stash is running dry, something they never had to worry about when the Raid was still around. Square the alchemist lifts a vial and freezes, astonished by what's inside. He blurts that it's a healing potion of equality, something he can't copy, so advanced it's beyond anything he's ever seen. Then the shock hits. He's sure it was forged by the exiled Dragon Caretaker, because he can feel storm clouds rolling in over the kingdom's fate. In the heart of his throne room, the Emperor of Lazaria finally caves, his frustration etched across his face as he's forced to admit, even if it's only to himself, that the last caretaker was ridiculously skilled. Brooding gets smashed the moment an Imperial guard bursts into the chamber. He shouts that they've found Raid's location, and based on the traveler's testimony, Raid has already vanished into an unexplored region. A malicious grin snaps onto his face as triumph crashes through him, and then he finally declares it, ordering his carriage to be readied on the spot. With that, he announces he'll personally lead the hunt to capture the one he now labels a salary thief. His mind races with vicious plans. He's determined to rip every secret out of Raid, from those healing potion recipes to his dragon control techniques, and then wipe him out on some made-up charge. He burst into the open air, convinced he'd already won, roaring that this Raid wouldn't slip from his grasp. Meanwhile, way out of reach, the man the Empire is hunting gets the message. Raid stands cool in a potion-filled workshop, Rona and a dragon looming behind him, spins around with a vial in hand and asks, "So you're sure? The Emperor and his crew are coming to snatch me." Anna, still in her elven form, gives them the answer, serious as stone. She tells them the Imperial Sky Dragons roared it all out for them, loud and clear, leaving absolutely no doubt. She stared at the Emperor's audacity, thinking about the Lazarian Empire's ancient pact with the dragons, no meddling in that untouched, unexplored region, and wondering if he'd really swallow a tradition his ancestors kept alive for generations. Her worry hit the air like a storm. Raid, convinced he'd caused her pain, thanked her for the warning, then decided he had to bail out of the land of dragons before things got worse for her and everyone else. Luna snapped, "Wait." Just as he was about to leave, a steady voice stopped him cold and told him not to carry this burden by himself. Then a man with long, light-colored hair and a goatee stepped out, and Luna instantly knew it was her father. Raid's eyes went wide when he realized the truth. The Dragon King, Alburn, was standing right there in human form, and then Alburn dropped the bomb, declaring Raid an official resident of their country. His declaration instantly lit the room up. Rona screamed that she'd help if Raid ever hit trouble, and a nearby dragon chimed in, saying they owed him big because monsters weren't attacking them anymore, thanks to him, and Alburn stepped forward to make sure everyone in the crowd fully understood just how serious this was. Luna's face flickered with emotion, hand pressed to her chest as she swore she wouldn't stand by while the person who saved her life was in danger. Then Alburn's gaze turned stone cold when he declared it. They would repel the divine dragon empire. He thundered through the crowd, rallying dragons and beastfolk alike, blasting them for banishing someone just to turn around and drag them back, and the whole assembly erupted in one massive, deafening roar of "yeah." While the Emperor's expedition kept charging forward, his jewel-bright carriage rode the clouds, escorted by a winged squadron of dragons as they tore straight toward the uncharted lands. Inside the carriage, the Knight Commander snapped questions at one of the sky dragons, stunned by how instantly it obeyed the Dragon Knight's control moves, since the day before it wouldn't listen to a single command. Lazaria's Emperor sat close by, sneering like he couldn't wait for payback, muttering where Raid was hiding and promising he'd make him suffer for dragging him this far. Then a sharp pain cry burst from outside. The noise wasn't a dragon at all. This time a colossal griffin fought its harness, Wings thundered as it hauled the Emperor's brutal carriage through the sky all by itself, screaming in raw, furious agony. The creature rockets forward and rips its talons through the Emperor's carriage, and the monarch gasps in total shock, because he's staring at a griffin on his own land. The crash hits like a thunderbolt, shattering the carriage axle and yanking the whole vehicle toward the cliff's edge, while the Emperor's eyes blow wide with raw terror as the ground crumbles out from under him. He gets blasted out of the plunging carriage, but before he can hit the ground, a griffin rockets down and clamps him in its razor-strong talons. Now he dangles helplessly as the Emperor thrashes and screams for the dragon knights to pull him out of certain doom. From up high, Raid and his crew watch everything unfold. Roanna double-checks with Alburn that they followed Raid's orders. No one touches the Emperor's life. Then down on the ground, the griffin finally lands, its talons dropping the carriage with a jolt. The monarch is sprawled on the ground, totally shaken up but miraculously untouched after that terrifying plunge. He cranes his head up and boom, Raid looms over him. The Emperor, finally crushed, is drenched in sweat and babbles an apology, begging Raid to return to the Empire with him, but Raid only listens for a heartbeat before coldly shutting it down. Then his mind snaps back to the day they threw him out. He hears the Emperor's voice again, blaming him for fake reports and a dereliction of duty, and realizing he didn't get killed, he got sentenced to exile, permanently cut off from the Empire. That memory lights a fire under him. His face hardens as he flat out declares, no matter how the Emperor words the request, he's never serving him again. His refusal detonates the Emperor's rage. He jolts upright, points with a trembling hand, and roars for his dragon knights to slaughter that insolent fool. The knights barrel forward, then the land's dragons slam their path shut on the spot. With the sky dragons ripped free from their restraints, Alburn snaps the order, everyone join the fight. When the Imperial forces closed in, a weird geometric pattern suddenly ignited inside one of the dragon's eyes, and right then, the Emperor broke out in a cold sweat. He was completely boxed in, dragons of every kind, wyverns and drakes alike, even ancient beasts descended in a single wave, forming an unstoppable wall of scales and teeth. Low, guttural growls rolled through the clearing, a single brutal warning aimed straight at the monarchy. The Emperor bellowed at Raid to stop right now, screaming that defying his will was treason. Raid didn't flinch at the accusation. He just smiled, calm as still water, and reminded him that after exile from the Empire, he wasn't an Imperial subject anymore, so calling it treason was flat out wrong. The Emperor couldn't get a word out. His shock detonated into pure terror as Luna, the ancient white dragon, descended in her colossal form, looming over him. Sensing her protective fury, Raid softly rested his hand on her snout, murmuring that he was okay and telling her to breathe. Then, with his touch and those calm words, the ancient dragon's rage finally faded. Seeing this, the Emperor's calm snapped into frantic orders. He was dead sure Raid could talk to dragons. Make them all obey the Dragonite and serve the Empire, he demanded, then raised the stakes. If Raid said no, those Imperial people would be swallowed by monsters closing in. Raid was trapped, staring at the nightmare choice, refuse and doom everyone, or obey and betray himself. He wheeled to face Faye and the others, fired off the Emperor's demand, and demanded their take. Faye thought it over, then shrugged that they didn't mind protecting humans, because they'd been doing that for ages. Raid stared at his own gentle side and couldn't believe Faye and the others were so kind to even entertain it. Then he snapped out a verdict to the whole group. They weren't going to bow to the current Emperor, because if they were forced into the same treatment as before, the dragons would get overworked until they were sick again. He whips around toward the Emperor, still perched on his dragon, and throws out a bold counterproposal. He lays out his demands like a bombshell. He'll craft better treatment plans for the Imperial sky dragons, and the Emperor has to swallow them whole, no edits, no delays. Then he demands a promise that the Emperor will never come for him or meddle in that unexplored region again. The Emperor scoffs, calling Raid Emir's pathetic salary thief, the kind he'd never listened to. The Emperor sneers and refuses, then boom. A blinding flash erupts from the ground right beside him, and a violent explosion tears the air apart. The blast detonates like a thunderclap, hurling the Emperor off his mount. He crumples at the edge of a fresh, smoking crater, coughing hard and blinking through a daze. As he tilts his gaze upward, a figure forms right in front of him inside a blazing magical seal. Then a nightmare snaps into focus. A silver ancient dragon that can wear a human body. The Emperor's blood turns to ice as the horrifying truth finally hits him. This is the one he's about to face. The figure's face snaps into focus. Those piercing reptilian eyes lock on instantly, and he introduces himself as Dragon King Albert. He then calls the Emperor out, saying the ruler long ago swore a pact with the divine Dragon Empire's Emperor, and now he's shattered it by marching troops straight into his sacred lands. He keeps pressing his admonishment, and his real dragon form looms behind him like a living nightmare, Albert Flatout says that if Raid hadn't stepped in to stop him, the Emperor would have been erased to nothing but dust. The Emperor's composure instantly shatters, and terror takes over as he collapses into helpless, uncontrolled sobs. After the dust settles from the clash, a brand new deal gets struck. Raid dashes out of the forest with a humbled Emperor Rona, and he actually negotiates better treatment plans for the Sky Dragons. Later, he sits down with Luna to hammer out the terms, and she practically lights up, thanking him for everything. Because the new rules slash the number of breath attacks that batter the dragons' bodies and force them to eat more and rest longer. He takes Luna and strides off, telling the gathered cat spirit tribe to drop the formalities, and he credits their success to everyone back in Dragon Country, and to Luna, while behind him Rona's disappointment flares because she'd begged to jump into the battle herself. As he keeps moving, he quietly exhales with relief. Rona and the others never outed themselves. He knows that if the Emperor had spotted the rare cat spirit tribe, it would have blown everything wide open. He lifts his gaze with fresh, blazing confidence, because deep down, he finally knows the Empire won't hunt him anymore. Out on the calm, paved streets of a quiet little town, something brand new suddenly arrives, and the whole place feels it. Deliberate footsteps thud across the stone, and the sound of light seems to follow every step. The sound comes from a young girl, bubbles shimmer out from her lips, floating in the air like pure magic. Swathed in a white hooded cloak, the mysterious girl sprints down a long stone corridor, and as she rockets forward, bubbles pop into existence behind her like a trail of magic. Up in the snowy north of the Dragon Country, the Ijiru Kingdom sits spread beneath them, and from that high ledge, Raid and Luna in her dragon form stare down at the royal capital as Raid grins. We're almost there. And yeah, he decides to move on foot, no distractions, no unnecessary attention, because those ancient dragons and cat spirits just guarantee asterisk chaos. Luna's perched behind him and she nods like he gets it. In a soft, snowy forest landing, Luna launches into her transformation. Then a glowing magical circle blooms under her feet as she shifts into her humanoid form. Right away, she jolts with a shiver and squeezes out a tiny sneeze, and in her human form, the cold hits way harder than she ever expected. Raid notices her discomfort, shoves a warm garment into her hands, and tells her to take it, only for Luna to jerk her head up in surprise and say she'd already snagged extra clothes from the cat spirits. Days after the Emperor's attack, the whole crew, now with Rona in the mix, moves as one, and Luna, wrapped in that Raid cloak, beams at him, thanking him over and over as she finally feels a whole lot better. Their journey slashes onward through the snowy woods, straight toward Falca, the royal capital of the Ijiru Kingdom, because they're hunting ingredients to brew potions, and Rona, buzzing with pure excitement, blurts out just how thrilled she is. Luna leans in and quietly warns her, telling Roanna not to lose herself in the hype, because as tamed beings their job is simple: accompany and protect. Rona beams and agrees, but Luna, deep down, can't shake the feeling that they didn't come just to mess around with Raid. Right after that, the trio barrels up to the massive stone gates of the capital city. Inside, they stumble into a buzzing city that feels alive, and Luna can't help but grin at the chaos in the streets. Rona spots a huge feathered beast and snaps, asking Raid if monsters like that are even allowed. Raid explains it's a Cymurg, built to shrug off the cold and help keep the kingdom running, and then casually drops that he picked up the details during his old job for the Empire, leaving Rona staring like, "You seriously know all this?" What? He clocks Luna's flushed face as she blurts out an apology, because that mouth-watering smell from the food stall totally lured her in. Then he points and says they've got grilled skewers right there. He strides up to the vendor, orders 3 pork skewers with sauce, then calls back to Luna and Rona that he's bringing them some. Luna takes a bite and her eyes flare with pure delight. She tells Ray this flavor is something the Dragon Country never serves, and Roanna nods, saying that punchy seasoning is straight-up addictive. Right after they finish their snack, Ray blurts out that they need to wrap up shopping before dark creeps in. The trio slips through the roaring market, hopping from stall to stall, inspecting everything like pros, and snagging every ingredient they need. With bags stacked high from all their shopping, they trekked down a tighter street when a tiny hooded kid suddenly burst out from an alley and darted away, like they'd just raided the place. The hooded kid slams into him, and when the hood drops, he jolts. There, staring back, is a little elf girl. His gaze snaps to the metal collar biting around her neck, and his mind races to the Ijiru Kingdom, where mages and criminals don't just get caught, they get enslaved. Desperate etched into her features, the young elf grips the collar and begs her group to hide her. Right before he can even answer, a voice blasts from the far end of the alley, yelling at the little brat to stay put. Then 2 men step in, cutting off their only way out. Trapped in place, Roanna whips around to Raid and asks if they should help the girl. Raid nods, watching those approaching men with their hostile stares, and knowing handing her over would spell trouble. He snapped his hand forward and slammed a magic circle into the ground. Then a surge of power ripped through the air as he summoned 2 Simurks and ordered them to shred the pursuers back. Summon the creatures' eyes burst open in an instant, blazing with alert focus and ready to strike. With a thunderous whoosh of wings, the birds explode into the sky, snapping the 2 men out of it, and Rona seizes the opening, shouting for everyone to move before the pursuers can refocus. As the Simurgs thunder down on the fleeing men, he leans in with a smug smile, because this plan wipes out every trace of his control, and then he lets go of the creatures. Bursting out of the alley, he spots the rescued girl staring up at him in shock, and she blurts out, "So, can dragon knights actually control creatures besides dragons?" She keeps going, clocking that the woman next to him is an ancient dragon, and blurts out that her razor-sharp intuition might be something she inherited by race. Raid then verifies Luna's identity, but her question leaves him scratching his head. As they stride through the snowy town, he grins and snaps her misconceptions into place. He isn't a dragon knight at all, he's a dragon caretaker. With the showdown fading far behind them, the crew barrels down a wide street while 2 locals watch them go. Then the girl spills out her reasoning. She'd heard that when things go bad, you run to the dragon knights for help, so that's exactly why she went to him, and Raid nods along, finally getting it. She yanks her hood off and shows her whole face, then introduces herself as Milfy, saying everyone calls her an elf, but she's really a water spirit, and that reveal hits like a thunderclap, stunning the rage. She meets Raid's skepticism with a steady stare, and when he says he's heard water spirits are extinct, same as cat spirits, she doesn't blink. She calmly vows she'll show him proof. She approves her claim, cups her hands, and bam, a shimmering sphere of pure water bursts into existence between them. Raid freezes in awe because she just summoned it without a magic circle, and that's the real deal, true magic, not sorcery. This display screams one huge truth. Sorcery demands a magic circle blueprint and burns power to cast, while magic uses a mental image to wrestle power straight from the source, no wasted loss. That rare kind of ability usually belongs to beings tied to nature itself, like spirits. The stakes are crystal clear now. Milfy isn't some act, he's the real deal, a true spirit. After Raid finally steps in with a late intro, Luna and Rona locks onto the only question that matters: why the heck is a spirit chained up in the Agura kingdom? Raid's eyes lock onto the collar at Milfy's throat, and the truth snaps into place. She tells him she was kidnapped about a year ago by the same men they just shoved away. Once Luna heard her explanation, it all clicked. Of course, a rare spirit race member would be the perfect target for kidnapping. She figures Milfy must have been sprinting for her life until she finally stumbled onto their groove. Once they finally get the whole picture, the group huddles up and plans their next strike. Roanna pushes hard to help Milfy, convinced something pure is trapped under that dead, sour scent. Raid wants to tuck her away in the dragon lands. And Luna nods, saying flying her there means their hunters can't tail them. As they keep deliberating, Milfy breaks down and begs them to bring her along, because she's got nobody left waiting for her. Seeing that raw desperation, Ray reassures her, saying there's only one snag left: the slave collar, and he's already got a plan. He tells her his plan could feel awful, but Milfy doesn't hesitate. She'll do anything as long as the collar comes off. Once she agrees, Raid stomps out a magic circle and unleashes a crushing wave of raw power. With power roaring through the circle, he lays out his plan: tame collars or slave collars, both demand total obedience. Then he grins. If he casts a taming spell stronger than those collars, he'll overwrite her master and lock him into submission. He starts chanting for an unbreakable contract, and as the surge hits, the metal collar around Milfy's neck starts to split and crack. He clenches his teeth, realizing he's still short on magical power. Then the spell bites back, and he yelps as raw energy crackles around his hands. He snatches back his courage, remembering the brutal work it took to subdue an ancient dragon, so this should feel way easier than that, and it probably will. With one last burst of will, he declares that a slave collar is worthless, and right then, a blazing chain of light snaps around Milfy, crackling with terrifying power. That concentrated blast slams into the collar and crunches the batwing insignia on its front, fracturing it under sheer pressure. The device snaps tight around her neck, and then, just like that, the magical bonds holding it together give out for good. With one brutal snap, the collar shatters in midair and clatters to the ground like it's finally given up. Moments later, the woman on the street can't stop staring at the wild idea of a dragon tamer who can command ancient dragons. Milfy, free now, fingers her own neck, cheeks blazing, while somewhere else their pursuer yells that it's time to start the hunt. He leans in and tells his partner, "Don't you dare underestimate them just because they're kids. There's no way they haven't already gone way further than you think." With the pursuers bearing down, Rona blurts, "Why don't we just fly away?" Raid shuts it down fast, then orders Luna to shove Rona and Milfy ahead while he stays back to smash their trackers. Luna shifts into her massive dragon form, admitting it'll be impossible to miss, but she refuses to back down, and Raid grins, agreeing right on the spot. Right when the pursuers saw their target slipping away, one of them swore, spotting Raid as a dragon knight, and rage hit as he realized chasing them would be impossible once they took to the sky. Moments ago, the chase was pure chaos. Raid sprinted through the alley with Milphy in his arms, while Rona barreled right behind him, and one of the men screamed at the little brats to wake. Rona refused to slow down. She spun around with a wild grin, heaved a massive wooden log onto her shoulder, and barked at them to grab it. With a brutal heave, she hurled the log straight ahead, crash, and it slammed onto the ground right in the pursuers' path, jolting them off balance and stopping their charge cold. To make sure Barrier bought them the time they needed. Now up in the sky on Luna's back, Raid stared down at the furious men below, snapped out a curse, and felt the relief hit, yet his nerves stayed on edge. As they tore through the clouds, Luna blurted out that the trip was a total win, proud that they'd finished their shopping and somehow even saved Milphy. Raid couldn't stop worrying about what would happen next. He even blurted out his hope that the Dragon King wouldn't blow up at them for dragging Milphy along without permission, convinced the king was a kind-hearted father who always steps in to help people in need. His words sounded like trouble in the air. She shook all over, calling herself useless as a spirit and pathetic for getting captured, while Raid snapped in right away, yelling that none of it was true, because as a rare race, he was certain the Dragon King would welcome her. He met her gaze with a soft, steady look and told her, "Yeah, everyone starts out weak, but if you keep going, you'll get stronger from here." He kept his word, saying that even as just a dragon caretaker, he'd help her. Milphy was so moved by his sincerity that all she could do was stare up at him and murmur his name. She slumps against Raid and tells him, "As a spirit, I feel way safer with more magic power in the air, so keep the taming spell running." Raid freezes, stunned, because he realizes he totally forgot to let it go. He agrees to her request, and right on cue Luna calls his name from ahead, confirming she gets everything and will keep the spell running too. Then her voice snaps into pure urgency. She tells him a horde of monsters is barreling toward the dragon country, and his eyes blow wide with instant alarm. He hears the terrifying news the ancient dragons bellowed across the land, and when he processes it, the horde's leader steps up and claims he's one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. That name hits him like a thunderclap. He remembers the legends. The 4 heavenly kings aren't just stories at all. They're the Demon King's deadliest top-tier lieutenants, the same ones that once tore across the continent and shoved it to the brink of ruin. And the moment it clicks that they're real, the realization slams into him and won't let go. Right as he's lost in thought, Luna chimes in that even the Dragon King and his own father might have sensed the Demon King's revival was creeping closer, especially with monster activity spiking lately. Nearby, Rona's face twists with fierce focus as the results hit. She snatches the Raid's arm and blurts that she's joining them to help, while Milphy quietly insists she wants to stay right by his side, so he's stuck in the middle, torn between 2 heartfelt demands. He clenches his thoughts, weighing every move. Sure, leaving Milphy in the cat spirit village feels safer, but what if something goes wrong while he's gone? In the end, he decides it's smarter to keep her close, because protecting her is easier when she stays with him. After locking in his decision, he turns to Luna, thanks her for backing him up, and lays out a plan: circle the horde from behind, watch what's coming, then choose the strategy. Luna nods and agrees. That's exactly the move. He snapped the binoculars up to his eyes, and his worst fears hit like a punch. Down below, a monster horde surged forward without stopping, ogres and wyverns leading the charge like a living nightmare. Beside him, Luna stared the oncoming wave down, jaw tight and eyes cold. Their moment of watching gets smashed by a sudden, bold voice. Then a woman with flaming red hair and a toothy grin steps right into view and declares she's Aru of the Explosive Flank, one of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings. She snapped her finger at the group, that fearless smile locked in place as she slammed her demands on the table. Hand over the water spirit you stole from the Ijaru kingdom, and do it right now. If they played along, she promised a death that was merciful and painless. Raid and Milphy just stood there, frozen, stunned by the sheer audacity of the confrontation. Her warning sliced through the air, backed by that calm, knowing smirk, and just like that, a truly terrifying enemy stepped into view. Right before a screaming avalanche of monstrous creatures, a woman with reddish-orange hair and tiny wings by her ears flashes a sharp, toothed grin and declares who she is. Aru of the Explosive Flame, one of the Demon King's 4 heavenly kings. Her voice slams down a brutal ultimatum on Raid and Milphy. Give back the water spirit you snatched from the Ijaru kingdom, right now. And if you hand it over, she'll grant you a merciful death so you can scatter without even feeling the pain. His eyes snag on 2 tiny, shimmering piles on the ground, and as the demand clicks, dread hits. Milphy is the target. Luna, blazing beside him in her dragon form, backs up that fear with a confirming nod. From far off, Aru watches them like a shadow, quietly thinking, they still haven't sensed I'm here. That raid is already cooking up a counterattack. He shoots instructions to Luna to seize the opening he's about to make, pinning the horde from range with a sealing technique and blasting the air with a breath. Then he leans in and asks, "You ready?" What? Sometime later, in a hushed room, Roanna stared past a stack of empty bowls and replayed the fight in her head, because the showdown with a demon king, for Heaven's Kings, turned out painfully anticlimactic. Luna sprawled nearby and nodded, confessing she'd been itching to end them herself. Then the whole fight snapped shut in seconds, all because Raid's chains yanked them tight and her breath attack finished the job. Milfy chips in that the real wind was striking from the shadows, and that perfect timing let them mow down the gathering horde. Raid just smiles, satisfied with how it all turned out. Then the talk swings straight to their prisoner, Aru. Roanna demands what they're going to do with her now that she's locked inside a cage. Raid admits they've got no choice but to keep her strapped down using the sealing technique for a bit, because once she's free, there's no telling what she'll unleash. Later that night, Raid perches on the edge of the bed while Rona and Milfy sleep, and Luna, still in her elf form, clings to him from behind like a warm lock. He groans, asking if she really plans to stay in his room, and she just nods, swearing it's her way to keep all the indecent troublemakers out. He panics, thinking this is way too much for a healthy man to handle, and shoots glances at his sleeping companions, begging in his head for them to step in with Luna, but they're dead asleep. He lay awake in the dark, staring at Roanna and Milfy sleeping soundly beside him, soaking in that rare, quiet calm in their tiny room. Even in the hush, his mind was sprinting, Lunan stirring inside him, and sleep turning into something utterly impossible. Elsewhere in a cold stone dungeon, Iru's heart sank under the weight of his chained fate. A skeletal figure in a dark robe stalked closer, scythe poised like it was about to end everything. A jolt ripped through Raid, and he shot upright in bed, visions of shattering chains slamming into his mind. A jolt of movement snapped everyone awake. Milfy's eyes went huge with terror as she pointed at a distant plume of smoke, shouting that the place was a nightmare and begging Raid not to step a single foot in. The moment he saw it, everything clicked. He locked in with a fierce stare and ordered Roanna to take care of Milfy. Without a single word, he and Luna burst out of there, sprinting straight for the disturbance's source. They burst in and there were two skeletal mages, locked in a spell chant, rattling on about their dragon-binding chains sealing technique. The second the mages lunged, Raid shot his hand up, a blazing magical sigil forming as he geared up to counter. Just as Aaron tried to move, the skeletal figures crumpled to the ground, too late for one of them, who spotted the collar on Aaron's neck and realized that was the source of everything. With a deafening crack, the magical chain snapped to pieces. Aru burst through the chaos, exploding with power and cackling like a madwoman. "Back," she shouted, while Rage braced himself and shielded against the blast. He and Luna held their ground while Aru calmly told them how she slipped out, revealing a dark reaper ripped away her sealing technique, and admitting it took real nerve to sneak past the ancient dragon's unblinking eyes. In answer to her boast, Luna snapped back into her real dragon form, but Aru just smirked and waved it off as nonsense, then bragged that she'd already blasted the skeletal mages to ashes with her flaming explosion. A massive dragon shook the sky with a furious roar as a raging ball of energy swirled in her mouth. Then she screamed that Aru would answer for his barbaric crime, paying with his own body for burning her brethren alive in their homes. She blasted out a crushing beam, but Aru didn't flinch. He just lifted a hand, and a shimmering energy sphere snapped into place, swallowing the attack like it was nothing. A glowing sphere hardened shut, sealing Luna inside it, and Raid froze in terror, shouting her name as the dragons thrashed and clawed at the magical prison. He could only stand there as Aru mocked the trapped dragon princess and told her struggle was pointless, because that flame cage was forged to shut down every bit of magical power before it could slip outside, and that revelation hit Lunastani like a punch. That implication hit Raid like a hammer, while Aru casually snapped into a flame cage so brutal that even Luna's breath couldn't touch it, and she did it without a magic circle. Her gaze snapped onto him and crackling energy surged into her hands as she declared, right out of the surprise, that this was the real power of one of the four heavenly kings, and now the human's turn had arrived. She shot up into the sky and blasted the ground with a raging torrent of fire, roaring that he'd regret every second he ever tried to keep her trapped inside his own burning flames. As the inferno thundered toward him, terror snapped across his face. Then Luna, trapped in her prison, screamed his name and warned him, and boom, a glowing magic circle flared on his chest. Now he grips the source of protective magic in his hand, the dragon tamer's sealing technique that can wipe out even an ancient dragon's power. Aru freezes, staring in shock, stunned that a mere human can stand against her flames. From her cage, Luna shouts his name, genuinely impressed. Aru forces herself to accept his strength and swears she'll answer, calm and controlled. She swears she won't stop until the Demon King is brought back to life, certain her magic blows his out of the water, and when she sees him refusing to budge, she commits to one last, finishing technique, only for him to crank every ounce of his magic and aim to dump it straight into the ceiling. He rockets upward and rips out his ultimate ceiling technique, Azure Sky Dragon Encounter ***, and from that orb, blinding energy chains explode forward, slamming into a shocked arrow. Light chains snap around her arm, snuffing her flames before they can even fully ignite. She gasps as her power gets wiped out. Then he clicks, that ultimate ceiling fire dragon technique was built for dragons, but it slams demons just the same. With her power sealed tight, he snarls for her to give up. Then the word boomerangs off Aru, sharp with pure defiance. She snarls through clenched teeth, thrashing with every ounce of strength as the magical chains lock her down completely. He jolts in panic when he realizes she's trying to crush the ceiling art with nothing but raw force, so he screams at her to stop, because if she keeps going, magic will drain her dry and she'll self-destruct. And he makes it crystal clear he's not trying to kill her. His warning hits, and she answers with a defiant smirk, boldly saying she'd rather be pinned down by an enemy twice over than ever give in. Realizing she won't hear a word, he decides he has to end this himself before she perish. Then he lunges forward, fists blazing with that condensed ceiling magic. He swings it like a punch from hell. Aru's eyes go wide with panic as she realizes she can't fully dodge it. He rips open the Divine Dragon Empire's ultimate move, the dragon-piercing awakening, and then drives his fist, blazing with chained energy, straight into his opponent. That brutal impact slams a shockwave through Aru, and she gasps out loud as her vision slips into black. She crumples onto the grassy field, completely crushed, while Raid looms over her motionless form, the fight finally over. As Luna closes in, he hauls the unconscious Aru into his arms, and her voice cracks with worry as she asks if he's okay. Without wasting a second, they drag their captive straight to the cave where Luna was trapped. Inside the cave, he tells Luna the truth. He didn't just chain Aru up, he's also broken her spirit so she won't fight back. Then he turns to Aru and starts laying down his demands, answer every question honestly. Don't rampage, don't hurt a soul, and absolutely no magical power ever. Aru's total shock hits, and suddenly she's blushing hard, squirming like she can't believe it. Then she gasps as the invisible chains, yanking at her, awaken something wild and brand new inside. She hits a provocative pose and dares him to say what demands he's really planning to make, because to her, his talk of taming is just a cover to make her body submit to every order he gives. As Aru boasts that he can control her body but never her heart, Luna glares in disgust like she's seen this exact act in the cell, while Raid starts to spiral with anxiety, because he knows this kind of behavior could poison Rona and Mily, who are now locked in, watching the scene unfold. Rona jolts with fury, roars that seducing men is what succubi are made for, and tells Aru to chill and go a bit easier. Then she snarls that if Aru pulls another seduction stunt on her partner, she'll make him pay for that slave collar incident. The moment she threatens her, she snaps into action and lands a hard slap across Aru's face. Raid lunges forward, shouting for her to stop, saying he still has questions for Aru, and that this is exactly why he decided to tame her instead of just sealing her away. He demands to know why Aru sent her subordinates to kidnap Mily. Rona snaps back in a blaze of fury, saying she'll only forgive Aru if she becomes a slave, then catches herself and calls it taming instead, while Aru stays unshaken and calmly lays out her reasons. Mily is the last surviving princess of the water spirits, the same spirits who sealed her away long ago. Mily gasps at the confession, stunned because she honestly didn't know she even had royal blood. Her childhood is a blur. Then she throws out the reason. Since Aru is her natural enemy, everything she did was just careful, desperate insurance against getting sealed again. Aru snaps her focus onto the young man, admitting it's pathetic to lose twice to the same opponent. But his sealing technique is so brutal it can choke her flames even at full power. Then she calls him human male, and he immediately shuts her down, saying, "No, my name is Ray." Her eyes snapped wide as the truth hit. She claimed he had to be the bloodline of that legendary Imperial dragon knight who once sealed the Demon King, soaring through the sky on an ancient divine dragon. She even threw out the idea that, just like Mily, he might be totally clueless about where he came from. Raid can only stare back and insist it's not in his head. His parents never said a word about any of it. He shuts down the talk about his bloodline, saying the odds aren't zero, but right now, bigger fires are burning. He demands answers from Aru about why monster attacks have suddenly spiked and where the Demon King fits in. Aru's confidence turns murky as she snaps back, asking if he really thinks she'll spill the truth that easily, calling the Demon King their master, a ruler so powerful he commands the underground demon realm. He sighs at her defiance, "I get it," and Aru jolts in shock as she watches her own mouth move without her control. Under his taming power, she blurts out that the monsters are rattled because the Demon King's seal has worn down, and they're practically buzzing with excitement over his presence growing stronger. He digests the news. Turns out the Demon King, sealed away by the Imperial Dragonite, is gone. The memories hit him hard. In ancient days, the Demon King had power strong enough to nearly swallow the whole continent. Under that spell's pull, Arrow snaps that if she'd known where he was, she would have marched straight there herself, only to make Luna blink in baffled, questioning pardon. He lays out the plan. If the Demon King is waking up again, they have to hunt down his sealing spot and slam him shut before the demon race catches on. Then he corners Aru for intel on the other Heavenly Kings, and she admits she has no idea where they've been, but she does know two are already gone from long ago, so that leaves just one standing. She snaps him out of his guess, insisting, loud and clear, that the last of the four Heavenly Kings is a demon, and his power can match the Demon King himself. Then she warns that if that final king so much as makes a move, even the land of dragons won't be safe. As Raid and Luna soak up this brutal truth, Aru privately calls it a good sign, because with just one top-tier fighter like her still standing, the team should be able to take down whatever comes. Once he grabbed every last piece of info, he whipped around to Luna and laid out the plan right now. They'd hunt down where the Demon King's ceiling is. Luna nodded fast, then promised she'd call on the ancient dragons to help them track it down. Roanna stepped up in front of her companions, eyes locked on them with pure sincerity. She hurriedly apologized for the timing because they were moments from a crucial mission, then asked for her big brother Raid, urging him to spill exactly what she needed. Milfi chimed in too, admitting that both she and all of Dragon Country were saved because of him, and Raid just sat there thinking about how they'd all been leaning on him the whole time. The request kicked off a whole new chapter, and with pure grit in her eyes, Rona finally blurted her plea, asking if they could go to the Cat Spirit Tribe's homeland because someone there needed her help and she wasn't about to let them down. Up in the sky far above the clouds, Raid and his crew keep pushing forward. Raid and Luna cling to towering Top Fae, while Rona, Milfi, and Aru soar on a brutal, powerful red-scaled dragon. This place is the young woman's home. She's from the Cat Spirit Tribe, and she greets him as Lord Rage. Mararia bowed her head once more, pouring out heartfelt gratitude for his help. Then she called, "I'm heading back home now." He admits he finally understands what it means to protect your family, then lays it all out. After he tamed Aru, he learned Mararia's heart was set on reclaiming her clan's guardian sword, the Ketch. Even she couldn't sway her stubborn elder grandfather, so now he and Mararia are racing for the Cat Spirit Tribe's homeland, because demons have overrun it, trying to convince the one leader who once refused to bring the sword back. And the shock hit him too, that even a crew this ruthless carried a symbol for this cause. Dragon Gerard grabs the moment and blurts out that he never imagined he'd be joining them. Then he points out that if the princess is set to go, she'll need an escort, and he vows, loud and confident, that he won't mess it up. She scoffed at his boast, basically saying loud mouths get exposed first, then leaned in to calm a worried MILF, telling her that Gerard treats the young ancient dragons like an older brother, which just ends up poking every last nerve in him. Raid strides along the ground beside Mararia, then leans in and fires off questions about what this guardian sword even is. She tells him this heirloom is the Cat Spirit Tribe leader's family treasure, passed down for generations, and the legend claims it once crushed a giant demon. As her voice dropped into darkness, she described the invasion, and right then, kobolds and minotaurs burst in, followed by a roaring wave of other monsters, even a hulking three-headed hydra. They never got a single second to grab the sword. She gaped at the monster's scaled foot that had pulverized her home, and then one chilling truth hit like a blade: a hydra. The hydra was only the start of the destruction. As the group stared at the shattered ruins, Rona froze in horror and whispered that this was her home. Mariah swallowed hard, confirming it was their village, her voice dripping with grief. Gerard took in the wreckage, and Raid noticed something that hit like a punch. Her grandfather and the others had basically surrendered to the idea that they'd never come back. He replayed Mararia's tale of that doomed day, when monsters tore in. Her father and mother fought to the end, dying to keep her safe. In their last breaths, Mararia vowed she'd someday take it all back, and then the guardian rose, flew through the sky in their homeland, and returned with her clan, with their pride blazing again. His mind wandered to what the village used to be, just as breathtaking as the Dragon Country, where everyone lived in peace, untouched by monsters. Roanna's fierce scream to Raid shattered the moment. She swore Mararia wants to get everyone back home, no matter what. Her words lit a spark under Mararia's skin. She turned to the Raid with fresh, unshakable conviction, swearing she'd seize the Guardian's sword back and make it the power that would lead them all. Now that their mission was crystal clear, Raid demanded to know where the sword was, and Mararia pointed them straight to the village chief's house, saying the blade sat locked away in a massive underground cavern. As they headed out, Luna's draconic eyes went sharp, and she caught an odd new scent riding the wind. Her instincts and Gerard's too screamed in warning, and the monstrous red dragon roared, blowing the alarm and letting everyone know they were about to get hit. The warning hit them just in time, right as a brutal surge of energy exploded straight ahead, swallowing the land in a roaring, violent blast. As the last of the energy faded, three figures burst into view, and Aru snapped, cursing under her breath. Her flames hit their defenses and just wouldn't break through, exactly like Lord Vasil had warned. Mararia's eyes flared wide with recognition the second she saw them. The Heavenly King's direct subordinates, Sword Demon Vasil and his 6 attendants. Raid and Milfy could only freeze, staring in full shock. They stare at the group, and the spiky-haired demon spots someone at once, Lady Aru. He blurts it out, thinking the monster Lord Vasil's scent must have smashed through her seal and reached the water spirit village. Right then, Raider chips in. Vasil is a demon so terrifying his power rivals even the Demon King, and these must be his 6 attendants. Then she snaps his focus to Aru, who's standing there with her head bowed, and demands to know why she's even coming along. As Aru starts to sweat, she can't even get a word out, so the demon sharpens his gaze, convinced she must have been captured. She shoots a defiant look up and flat out declares she'll use her right to stay silent. Then, as he watches the whole exchange, Raid can't help thinking that this Heavenly King is utterly hopeless. The dark-haired demoness glares at Mararia, shocked that any water spirit made it out alive. Then she freezes her with a cold truth. Vassal didn't just attack her village with monsters, he commanded its total destruction. Moriria's eyes snap wide with terror as the demon's words slam into her, and the truth hits like a punch. The demoness keeps that faint smile on his face, calmly saying that any clan who can seal away one of the demon kings for a heavenly king is a ticking nuisance, so if they're left alive, they're getting wiped out. Rona is crushed by the devastating truth. She collapses in tears, sobbing over the wreck of her clan and spitting that their actions are unforgivable, while Raid, keeping his cool, quietly slips his hand behind his back. The 2 attendants explode into a radiant glow, and the spiky-haired demon steps forward, Amgoraz the Will-o'-the-Wisp. He declares Lord Vasil's command, burn everyone except the cat spirit tribe who showed up for the sword. Then Shuro the Green Wind smirks, admits she's sleepy, and says she wants to finish this fast. In the next breath, brutal dark chains slam out of the ground and clamp down on the whole area. Raid freezes in alarm as Luna notices the magical power pouring from the 2 demons is way beyond what an average dragon could ever pull off. Somewhere hidden from sight, Raid tightens his grip on an item, because of course he came ready. Dark magic chains slithered around Aru's leg and trapped her in a tight, unmoving grip. She gasped, pain exploding in her voice, while Goraz, one of their captors, stared on with rage burning in his eyes. Goraz flew into a rage and blasted him as a coward, sneering that it was a sneak attack, yet Raid stayed stone calm, realizing what it meant the moment he saw Aru get snagged by the trap. He snapped his gaze to the cat spirit tribe and told them to move, fast, before more monsters crashed in, because even demons could be shut down if they got sealed the moment they showed up, before their magic could even breathe, and he ordered Mararia to rush and grab the guardian's sword right now, while the opening was still there. But the moment he tried to move, everything detonated. An enormous, many-headed serpent erupted in front of them, dragging a whole wave of monsters that swarmed the area like a living nightmare, and dread hit him. Maybe they'd arrived too late, and they couldn't waste even a second stuck here. Without wasting a second, he snapped, Gerard, get Mararia, Aru, and the others to grab the guardian's sword first. Gerard nodded, and Raider's legs suddenly kicked back into gear. Then Gerard fired a brutal burst of flame from his mouth, carving a blazing lane straight through the demon horde. As they tore away from the chaos of battle, Rowana and Mararia whipped their heads back, worry etched on their faces, shouting his name. Rowan's voice cut through the chaos as she swore she'd handed the guardian's sword's retrieval to the other 2, while Raid stood beside Milfy, staring down the monster tide with nobody else. She wrapped up her sentence with a fierce promise. Once they got their chance, they'd all break free together. He spun toward Milfy and begged her to join the others if she could, but she shot it down. No way. She refused to budge until the monsters were totally wiped out. Meanwhile, Goraz strained against the chains biting into him, yelling with pure frustration, and he realized the sealing technique trapped in him wasn't normal. Raid clocked it instantly with a sharp, focused stare. His sealing technique was finally cast, but Milfy could only stare in shock as the demon fought back like it was shrugging off the rules. It crushed through her anti-dragon magic with sheer, brutal power, and the impossible suddenly felt real. Milfy swore she wouldn't let it get away. She wasn't finished. With one last, vicious burst of power, the demon Goraz ripped his magic chains to pieces, so hard the wooden platform beneath him cracked and split. The spell shattered and the impact blasted Mylphy into the dirt, sending her sprawling. Goraz leaned over her with a teasing smirk, like he couldn't help but admire how tough that little spirit really was. Who couldn't land the finishing blow, until Raid surged forward again and Goraz froze in stunned disbelief as fresh chains snapped into existence. Raid's own sealing move, dragon-binding chains. His shock crashed into confusion, because Goraz instantly recognized the technique. How could it exist when Lord Vassal had supposedly wiped out the very clan that used it? And when that hit, Raid couldn't stop wondering what his powers really were. They decided to talk later, and he snapped his focus to the giant, multi-headed serpent terrorizing the monster horde. Then he unleashed an even deadlier spell, heavy dragon-binding chains, before yelling for Luna to follow up. The glowing chains burst forward, clamping tight around the massive beast's body and necks, pinning it down and stopping it cold. With the biggest threat finally contained, he locked in the new game plan with Luna. Right now, their only job was to wipe out the monsters. Then the beastmen horde screamed and surged forward, roaring straight at them. She snapped back instantly, blasting a brutal wall of destructive power from her mouth that crashed across the battlefield, swallowing the enemy's front lines whole. Mylphy ripped herself back to her feet and charged right into the chaos, thrusting her hand forward to sling a fresh binding spell at the beast man closing in fast. She watched Raid slam back at the horde, blasting out a surge of energy that erased an orc in an instant. Then she saw him snap his focus onto a minotaur barreling straight for him. He slammed his hands forward and froze the beast in an instant, trapping it in ice, while the magical chain's power still shimmered on his skin. Meanwhile, a shadowy winged figure drifted up to Luna and told her that Raid's martial arts and those sharp movements in the recent battle were straight-up impressive, then revealed how he'd watched the Empire's Dragon Knights train for years, a skill he learned from his parents long ago. Raid stared in stunned silence as the wingman snapped his wrist, effortlessly shattering the magical chains, still yanking Goraz down. Finally free, Goraz whipped around and thanked his rescuer, then admitted his proudest sealing technique was shattered. Aru still snapped at him for showing up late, confessing she'd been terrified he was already done for. Vantaurus the Winged Man declared that the magic power seal on both targets was finally done, and Raid snapped to it, realizing the enemy had backup allies. From where they stood, Goraz and Aru clocked a sealing technique user 2, judging the threat as the absolute highest class with. Without warning, Vantaurus erupted into motion, rocketing across the distance in a blur to smash the Raid. Raid was just too quick, then a brutal strike ripped into his chest, and he stumbled back hard as Luna screamed his name in panic. As Raid steadied himself, he clocked the exact stance his opponent had chosen. Ventura's freeze felt like a quiet nod to his skill, like he'd confirmed the level, and now it was time for the next strike. Then he snapped his hand up and unleashed a terrifying dark energy technique, an ink-black blade forming in his grip as he shouted the name, Dark Fang-piercing blade asterisk asterisk. A black-caped winged beast dives at Raid, then blasts him with a sickening wave of dark energy, right as the attacker screams the move, Dark Fang-piercing blade. Raid's eyes flare wide in pure shock when the cursed blade forms out of darkness in front of him. When the sudden attack hits, Luna rips forward in her shining white dragon form, roars like thunder, and screams Raid's name. She snatches the dark energy blade out of the air at the last second, slamming a shield in front of Raid before the blast can land, while the masked attacker grunts snarls that his technique got shut down, and Raid just stares, stunned that she showed up in time. He spits out the name of the attack, and even though he's never heard the skill before, it feels weirdly familiar, like a well-known sword style got twisted into something demonic. His mind snaps the technique to the Divine Dragon Empire, where skills like that are legendary, and the realization throws him off balance. The masked attacker catches the flicker of recognition in Raid's eyes, and without a word just stares like, how in the world can a demon pull off something like that? Combatants keep their distance as Vantaurus slams onto the ground, while Luna hangs in the air, Raid now riding safely on her back. The winged man sized up the chaos and clocked Raid as a deadly fighter, terrifying up close with advanced combat skills. So Raid, realizing his questions won't get a single reply, clenched his fists and charged into a full-on fight. With the battle lines carved into the sky, Raid snatches his resolve back, fists clenched, pure determination burning. Realization hits him hard. This guy is another descendant of the Imperial Dragon Knight, and his sealing techniques are so vicious they can bind and command ancient dragons. In the distance, Aru and Goraz watch in silence, and Goraz declares the mission is done. They've sized up the sealing user's true skill. Aru nods, and now they're locking in on their real priority, reporting to Lord Vassal. He yells at them to stop, begging for more details, too late though because the winged figures are already surging forward. Right behind him, Luna towers in her massive dragon form, perfectly poised, ready to strike. Vantaurus, Goras, and Aru blasted past his plea and rocketed into the sky, vanishing fast from the area. As they shoot off into the sky, Gora whips his gaze back and roars one last threat, saying next time they collide, he'll personally exterminate the Imperial Dragon Knight bloodline that Lord Vassal couldn't finish off. His words die off as the demons shrink into tiny specks above the clouds. Luna looks to Raid and asks if they should chase, but he shuts it down. He'd rather pull back and regroup with Rona and the others. Later, with everyone gathered, Aru breaks down the whole mess from the demon's side, and once she points it out, it clicks. If a clan has the power to seal the Demon King, then they're the devil's biggest threat, so wiping them out completely becomes Vei's top priority, no questions asked. Raid leans in, sharp-eyed, then shuts down a rumor about his clan. Sure, they've been dragon caretakers for generations, but not for the reason everyone else swears is true. He keeps going, saying it wasn't some lucky accident. They didn't stumble into caretaking. They earned it because their sealing techniques were strong enough to lock down dragons. Aru then adds that skills can grow and shift, guessing the hunt that hit Vasil's clan probably wiped out the family's original traditions. By lining up every clue, Aru snaps to her conclusion. Raid's magic feel, his look, and that sealing move match the Imperial Dragon Knight to a T, and with the Demon King's revival breathing down their neck and his forces already marching, she says it with zero doubt. Raid is blood of that legendary line. Revelation hits him like lightning, and he stands there stunned as he slowly lets this new identity sink in, quietly, but mind-blown. Luna meets his eyes with that gentle look, and she softly hints that maybe their meeting wasn't random at all, maybe it was destiny. Her words slam into the silence between them, and both of them freeze, trying to decode what it really means. He blurts out, wondering if this new identity means he's doomed to take down the Demon King with Luna. Then Aru dodges the question and snaps back that, as the Demon King's mistress, she has no wish to see him fall. Right after that, she shifts gears and asks, "So, is the seal we were talking about still holding?" Her question lingers in the air as Roanna and Mariah get slammed by a shimmering, invisible barrier. Struggling with every breath, Roanna hammers it with blazing fists, sparks flying each time she strikes. Luna can't look away, urging them, "Hold on a little longer," and you can hear in her voice that she knows exactly how hard this is. Raid's eyes narrowed as he assessed everything, then it hit him. Luna could blast her breath and shatter the barrier in seconds, but he instantly shut that idea down, terrified the shockwave would topple the whole underground cavern. Instead, Raid swung his focus to Roanna, slapped a steadying hand on her shoulder, and asked her to help him for a moment. Then he pours his own magical power straight into Roanna. Her eyes pop wide with shock, telling her he's boosted her strength for only about 10 seconds, so she has to shatter the barrier right now. As power surges through her, Roanna clenches her teeth, locked in for the final strike. She lets out a thunderous shout, slams her fist into the barrier, and shatters it into a storm of glowing fragments, then turns back with a triumphant blush, beaming that she can see past it now. Luna just stares, impressed at how wild that feat was for a child. With the path finally cleared, the crew pushes deeper into the cavern, and there it is, a huge, pitch-dark spring, and from its center, the hilt of a sword juts straight up from the water. As they close in, Raid shoots a question, "So this is the guardian sword of the spring," and Aru drifts beside him, eyes bulging as the blade clicks in her mind, her breath catching while she stammers in total disbelief. She declares it's the divine dragon Imperial sword, Reeden, the holy blade the Imperial Dragon Knight wielded in battle by the side of the Demon King. Raid snaps to the truth. This is exactly the weapon the 6 attendants were desperate to fetch. Aru nods, sealing the conclusion. The truth hits hard. Roanna can't shake the question of why a weapon like that is sitting in their village. Then Raid snaps the puzzle together. His clan's sealing art can lock up the Demon King. Luna adds the last piece. Her water spirit clan can seal Aru. And right there, the conclusion slams into him. Vasil isn't just attacking people. He's wiping out every clan that could stand in the way of the Demon King's revival. Arrow finally puts the last vital piece into place. Right before she was sealed, she heard a report of a cat-eared girl in the Imperial Dragon Knights, and now she's sure that girl wasn't just some beast person at all, but a real member of the cat spirit tribe. She explains that this old connection is the reason the sword has stayed safe inside the village for all these years, and Mararia's ears snap up, twitching with shock as she listens. She gasps as she remembers what her parents warned her. The sword held power to wipe out great evil, but it hits her now. She never imagined it was a legendary artifact of that level. As the blade flares, a wild surge of magic crashes over the whole group, and when Mararia grips it, Raid's eyes go sharp, because with a weapon like that, he's pretty sure he could slice a hydra down in one clean swing. Meanwhile, in the land of dragons, Luna rushes in and spills everything that just happened. Then the moment King Alburn hears it, he slams together an emergency meeting. dead set on preparing for the looming chance that demons might strike the dragon lands. Back in the village, Luna grills Raid for skipping the meeting, so he brushes it off and says high-level talks are for the dragons. Then bam, an elder comes crashing into view, and Mararia's face lights up as she identifies him as her grandfather, the cat spirit tribe chief. The elder burst with relief that Sir Raid is safe, thanking him for snatching back their guardian sword, only for Raid to wave it off, saying they only pulled it off because they fought as one. He keeps going, saying that sword is basically a guardian deity for his people. Then he pours out his gratitude, not just because it's back in his hands, but because you listened, and that's what helped the tribe finally make it home. As he speaks, every last cat spirit bows in perfect unison, and the chief declares they'll repay the debt with one promise: lifelong service. The chief goes out of his way to praise Mararia's role in their success, and Raid suddenly can't help but blush as the wave of gratitude hits him full force. She whips her head toward him, cheeks dusted with a shy blush, and whispers a genuine "well done." And when the rest of the tribe erupts with her name, Raid meets her eyes and lights up with a warm, steady smile. Luna, still in her elven form, shines with sparkling eyes and declares she's ready to feast on loads of mouthwatering meat, and the second Roanna hears food, her excitement explodes. She grabs Raid's arm and practically drags him into the celebration. The celebration's blazing hot. One of the cat spirit tribe hurls his drink up to the sky and screams for everyone to toast the return of their guardian sword, and the whole village explodes into feasting and laughter while Luna slips around with platters of food. In the middle of all the celebrating, Faye tears into his meal like a champ, while Raid, Rona, and Mariah huddle together, digging into the good food and soaking up the calm, warm vibes. After partying to their heart's content and soaking up every bit of fun, the companions and villagers finally collapse, then drop into sleep on the spot, sprawled across the clearing in calm, peaceful slumber. He's passed out cold, peacefully smiling, totally clueless as chaos erupts somewhere else. In a dark, hidden hideout, a huge decision gets made, because the sword demon Vassal is finally moving. From the shadows, his attendants Goras and a hooded figure watch in silence. Then the hooded one drops the truth. The Imperial Dragon Knight's descendant is alive. Gerard the Red Dragon rallied his kin with a roar that shook the air, reminding them how the princess fought like a lion in the homeland of the cat spirit tribe, never once folding against the demon race. And then he snapped, loud and commanding, to get their hearts pounding and start preparing for war work. The moment those words hit the air, the other dragons erupt, swearing they'll never let the demons escape after going after the princess's partner. And when Luna hears Raid being called her future husband, heat floods her face with mortified embarrassment because the whole thing feels completely unforgivable. He stands right next to Raid and admits it. Sure, their motivation sounds great, but the way they keep calling him her husband is baffling to her. Meanwhile, Faye squints and tilts his head, wondering if Raid has the whole "how close they really are" thing completely wrong. Raid shrugs off the worry about the species gap and insists it doesn't matter now that the princess can turn into a human. Then, before his argument can land, Luna shoots up and smashes Faye right on the head, cutting his thoughts off cold. Right when the conversation heats up, Mararia and Rona burst in. Mararia marches straight up to Gerard and snaps at him to cut the inappropriate talk since kids are right there, while Rona skips in with a bright, cheerful hello to Ray. Then Mararia turns to them and blurts, "So what brings you here?" And she tells them it's nothing special, just a routine report to make sure everything's okay, since the cat spirit tribe is even pitching in to help guard the dragon country. He reads the news and mutters that peace is the best outcome. Just then Roanna leans in from beside him and says, "Don't worry." Confidence surges as she juts her chest out and boldly vows that no matter what hits them, they'll step up and shield everyone. Peace shatters the second a messenger dragon dives in, bellowing that the princess must come now. Then it snaps that Cernaria is leaking heavy magical power, eerily like the sealing tricks Lord Raid used, and Luna instantly demands to know exactly where it's coming from. The messenger spills the location, right in the war-torn Great Forest, and the name hits Raid and Luna like lightning, yanking them into a grim memory of young Raid sprinting through those woods toward a fallen dragon. When he reunites with Raid, he remembers it, and Rona can't feel a single trace of sealing magic on his body. That freaks her out, so she thinks the Demon King must be locked up somewhere deep in the Great Forest, stirring up all that magical chaos. Raid, right there beside Rona, nods and says it's time to investigate. Gerard and Luna finally shed their disguise and launch into the sky as their true dragon selves, blasting over the entire landscape. As they ride through the wild, Luna looks over her shoulder and asks Raid, bouncing on her back, if he's got a destination in mind, because he's acting way too confident. Raid tells her his father warned him about a spot deep in the forest that used to be a training ground back in the days of the Divine Dragon Empire. That explanation makes Roanna snap back and question why they'd train under the Great Force, and Luna quickly lays it out. This safe haven inside enemy territory is pure strategy. Raid jumps in too, saying the monsters are gone, so it's the perfect base to launch their search. Ray trudges on and Mararia lanes in, asking why he couldn't train out in the open while he was stuck caring for the sky dragons, so he admits with a weary grin that he never quite fit and could barely do more than his assigned duties. Still, she reaches up and gently touches his cheek, nodding like she finally understands how rough that must have been. As the party pushes deeper into the woods, Mararia spots it. When they recovered the holy sword, its magic suddenly went quiet. Aru explains the blade is saving its strength for a true emergency, which means raiding won't be easy. And then he drops the real twist. Whether he can unleash its full power depends on his skill, and on whether the legendary sword decides he's worthy. She suddenly belts out that Mararia handed him the sword for one reason, because she, a cat spirit tribe representative, truly thinks his bloodline power can make him master it. Mararia blushes and yanks Aru to shut up, snapping that she's testing raids, but Aru can't focus. Dead silence in the forest is creeping him out, and there isn't a single monster in sight. Most monsters would probably steer clear, because once they realized they'd have to take on 2 ancient dragons, they'd back off fast. Then it hits him one tiny detail he'd completely missed, right up until this exact moment. He latches onto Aru's words about his Imperial Dragon Knight bloodline, and boom, a new theory smashes into place. Maybe the forest has always been crawling with monsters because a sealed demon king's power still lingers there. That's why his clan picked this exact spot as their training ground, to keep watch on the seal and stay ready for disaster. And just when it hits, another memory floods back with brutal clarity. This is the very place where he and Luna were reunited. He glanced at Luna and said their reunion in this legendary place felt like fate, and the great dragon nodded like it was the only truth. Deep in the tangled forest, ancient trees and cracked weathered stones were stamped with eerie cross-like symbols, like something holy and unsettling had been carved there long ago. As they pushed forward, Mararia snapped, confused because this route didn't feel like it was heading to their destination, and Raid only smiled, telling her it was right up ahead. He guided her to the edge of the woods, and she froze, eyes locked on a clearing ahead. Right in the middle, a calm pool of water reflected a tall, dark monolith that shot up toward the sky. As soon as Mararia stepped outside, her eyes widened at how shockingly open the place felt, while Luna barely took a breath, scanning the structure and sensing a weird magical pulse coming off it, then immediately firing the question at Raid. What was it? He told them this was the barrier's main focus, an engineered core meant to slam the gates shut and keep monsters off the training ground. Then his eyes snapped to Aru, lounging in the water with her feet barely dipped in, so he had to admit it, the barrier had loopholes. Was her demonic nature being ignored just because she was with him? Staring at the monolith, nostalgia hit him like a wave. His father's voice rang out about how it was a precious clan treasure they'd guarded for generations, and he could still feel himself, little kid hands, scrubbing it clean right beside him. Driven by the memory, he yanked out a cloth and started scrubbing the stone. Then, shock hit him like lightning. The monolith burst into a gentle, sparkling glow. Sparkling light snapped into a fierce rhythm, flashing in a pattern Luna couldn't ignore, so she grabbed the moment and demanded what it meant. Startled, the Raid could only stammer, "I don't know," because it had never flashed like this before. He freezes in shock as the monolith keeps blazing, and Mararia, gripping the guardian sword Reed, bluntly declares that if a blade has shown up, the countdown has finally started, while Raid can only blurt the sword's name in pure disbelief. The monolith suddenly rips free of the water, then blasts a brilliant column of light upward, washing over Raid, Mararia, and Luna as they stare in awe. In the blazing light, a figure forms, an elegant man in ornate traditional robes, dark hair pulled back. He flashes a calm smile and tells Mikazuchi who he is, a former Imperial Dragon Knight. Aru is instantly thrown off by his sudden presence. She blurts that it can't be true, because all that's left of him is his soul sealed inside a magic stone. Mikazuchi greets her with a warm smile, saying it's been ages and that she hasn't changed a bit. Flustered, Aru snaps that he only made it past time to embarrass her. The spirit chuckles, and Raid realizes his shape is already starting to fade. The spirit nods, confirming what she sensed, because as a soul, he's got barely any time left. Then his hand starts to crumble into glittering particles of light. Mikazuchi snaps into full focus on Raid, urgency blazing in his voice as he declares, "I've got to ask you something right now." Raid demanded his name, and the young man answered, "I'm Raid, and I'm a dragon tamer in the Divine Dragon Empire." Hearing that, Mikazuchi flashes a knowing grin, then tells the stunned Raid without hesitation, yes, he really is his ancestor. He hears the doubt in Raid's voice and leans in, explaining, "I figured out this era from a spirit, an ancestor from a few generations back. Then the spirit steps forward, reveals that Vassal shattered their family traditions and promises, "Now, I'm going to tell Raid the whole story." What? The ancestral spirit whips around to face Raid and his ancient dragon partner, Luna, and orders them, "No distractions, listen with every ounce of your focus." He leaned in as his ancestor, Mikazuchi, dropped a jaw-shattering truth. The Demon King wasn't some stranger at all, but a half-breed tied to their clan by blood. Mika admitted his plan was simple: wipe away the disgrace himself. But all he could do was seal the demon, paying with his own life, so the threat got delayed, while his soul stayed crippled in its current, weakened state. Once it clicked, Raid finally saw what his clan was really meant to do. Then he demanded answers. Why were the dragon tamers even working for Suk in the Divine Dragon Empire? Mikazuchi told them their ancestors once lived on an island nation to the east, and to beat the Demon King they had to sail across the sea. So people emerged who could talk to dragons, hitch a ride on their wings, and become the very first dragon tamers. Then Mikazuchi died. Vasil nearly erased their whole clan, and a single survivor was snatched up by the Divine Dragon Empire for those same skills, because that's how their bloodline survived, trapped forever in the role of dragon caretakers. He jolted in shock. Aru's suspicion was right on the nose. Their clan's secret, forged through generations, was the long-forgotten art of sealing techniques. Mikazuchi went on, and the bombshell hit hard. That monolith didn't just project his will, it was the front door to the alternate dimension where the Demon King is sealed. Aru realized, no wonder we couldn't find him. Then the spirit warned that as time dragged on, vital details vanished, and the seal itself started to weaken. His ancestor stared at him, a faint smile flickering across his lips, then declared it was fate, divine guidance leading straight to this Raid. That Raid had come to this place, carrying Reed as. The spirit's form flickered and its power drained fast. Mikazuchi warned he was almost out of strength, but he still had one last message to deliver, and when Raid felt the urgency, he shot back asking what he should do about the Demon King. Mikazuchi's eyes snapped sharp, and he told Raid this weakening seal was their golden chance to end the demon for good, because the magic he'd burned out back then had slowly come back after all these years. Then he grabbed his descendant by the resolve and ordered him straight up, destroy the Demon King with the Divine Dragon Imperial sword. And he leaned in, asking Raid if he'd take the job. Raid's expression snapped to resolve with zero hesitation. He agreed on the spot, swearing that if they crush the Demon King, peace will finally reach everyone. His ancestor was stunned by that bold declaration. Then, just a second later, deep calm washed over his face. He shut his eyes and silently offered thanks as his ancestor's spirit fades, Raid steps up to the towering black monolith, the Demon King's seal, eyes locked on its silent, crushing height, swallowing the weight of a mission so massive it feels like he's just been handed the impossible. Suddenly the monolith starts shaking like it's about to break. An ugly, bone-chilling rumble cracks through the stone, and Raid's eyes blow wide in pure alarm, completely blindsided by the disturbance that hits. With a deafening roar, the whole structure collapses into ruins, then its core detonates, unleashing a massive surge of energy that hurls Luna and Aru flying backward. In the middle of the chaos, Raid finally gets it. His stomach drops as the horrifying truth lands. The magic stone Mikazuchi, the Imperial Dragon Knight, chose to hold his soul has been shattered in one brutal, devastating hit, and as the dust clears, Mika's spirit watches from beyond, face twisted with raw pain and shock. From the thinning dust, a new monster steps forward, a young man in black armor, grinning like cruelty itself. He declares he's been waiting for this exact moment, begging for power to finally surface, his eyes flashing with pure malice as he spits at the disgusting aura he's just uncovered. Mikatsuchi's spectral self flashes into existence, and shock plus raging fury twists his face as he squares up to the armored intruder. Then he blasts, demanding to know how Vasil slipped past their sanctuary, and he immediately snarls about what happened to the ancient dragon guarding the outside. The question gets answered fast, because beyond the scene, pure chaos erupts as a horde of monstrous creatures barrels into the powerful dragons, smashing into them in a no-holds-barred brawl. As the invasion's true size hits home, Raid's stomach drops, because the sword demon's 6 attendants have shown up too, and they're a brutal force ready to tear into the fight. Still, he's not impressed. He clocked how ready they really are, and he fires back that he knows the Demon King is trapped in another dimension, while Cooley grins and says he definitely didn't waste the hundreds of years he'd been waiting. After that declaration, a putrid, corrupting shadow bursts up from the ground and wraps around him. He stands in the churning miasma, power blasting outward as he roars Mikazuchi's name like he's calling an old nightmare. An overwhelming power surge hits everyone at once. Raid feels the ominous, heavy magic choking the air, and Rona screams as the corrupt energy rolls through the trees, instantly withering them into death. Zuchi locks in on the terrifying threat, whips around to Aru and blurts out an apology, because their opponent isn't just tough, they're on a whole other level. Then his eyes snap to Raid, and in a grim, steady voice, he tells the kid to watch his step. Reveals a jaw-dropping truth that freezes Raid in total silence. Vasil was once human, the same brave warrior who, standing shoulder to shoulder with Mikazuchi, helped forge the Divine Dragon Empire-style techniques. The truth slams into Raid like a punch to the gut, the founder of the Divine Dragon Empire style, and suddenly everything clicks, explaining why those tendon techniques work the way they do. Raid stumbles as Vassal watches him with a deadpan look, muttering that he can't believe a dull descendant like this could possibly belong to Mikitsuichi. Vassal lifts his sword and it crackles with raw, god-tier power. Then he shouts the name of his move, Dragon Claw Swift Descent ***, a Divine Dragon Empire technique, as a colossal, spectral dragon claw erupts from his blade and slams straight toward the stunned Raid. He braces hard as Vasil unleashes a Divine Dragon Empire technique, Dragon Knight's Dragon Wing Waltz, and the blade cuts through the air at breakneck speed, charging straight for him. A punch from the unseen hits him like a freight train, and blood explodes from his chest. He's thrown backward and smashes the ground, stunned, realizing that blade never actually touched him. Mikitsuchi's spirit flickers with disbelief, wondering if he was only hit by erupting magical power. Pinned to the ground, Mikitsuchi spots Vasil's weapon, the Divine Dragon Imperial blade, Shangri-La, then blasts the truth. It's a holy sword forged to be paired with Reiden to annihilate demons, but now it's been twisted by demonic power, and the sheer madness hits him as it slices using pure magical energy alone. The swordsman unleashes yet another blast of pure force, slamming forward like a hurricane. Raid gets knocked back again, coughing up blood while Faye screams his name in panic. Then Vasil's voice turns icy as he declares he'll sacrifice Mikazuchi's final living relative, setting the stage for the Demon King's revival. He demands to know why Vasil, the warrior who helped forge the Divine Dragon techniques, ended up a demon, and Vasil's answer hits like ice. Human lives are too short. So the Demon King granted his wish, eternity, to sharpen his skills and chase perfection, and with a cold laugh, Vasil calls Raid a battle-crazed maniac and orders his dragons to kill him. He hurls out another crushing move, bellowing the name, Dragon Claw Spiral Grind, and a savage vortex of destruction surges straight for us. That swirling energy gets blown apart by one deadly double blast, Faye and Luna's dragon breath smashing it to nothing. So Vasil spits out curses at the ancient dragons for butting in, and when he spots his chance, Raid yells for Luna. The demon swordsman is already one step ahead. He spots Raid trying the exact move Mikuzuchi used, and he answers with his own sealing art trick. Glowing, ethereal dragon-binding chains erupt around him, snapping into place like they're ready to trap his opponent. His attack got the Raid stopped, and then it hit him like a punch. Vasil had slipped in and blocked the chains right from his blind spot. Rage and urgency flare at once, and he snaps to the truth. He never underestimated his opponent. Then, eyes blazing, he screams, "Aru, burn it." She snaps back instantly and rockets forward in a fiery blaze, screaming a defiant warning as she speeds toward Vasil. Don't get it twisted. Her body isn't something he gets to command just because she's been tamed. As the smoke from her attack thins out, Raid leans in, eyes locked. Then his dragon companion blurts out hopefully, asking if they actually crushed their foe. Even in that burning inferno, a brutal blast of power suddenly erupts from within, splitting the flames like they're nothing and ripping a massive, deep gash into the land. When the smoke finally vanishes, Vassal stands there, perfectly unscathed, glaring down at a stunned Aru and saying he's not misreading a thing. Every traitor gets cut down. In his head, he admits Raid is tougher than he expected, and right on cue, Luna gasps and shouts Raid's name in alarm. He thrusts his blade skyward, and the blade's name ricochets through his head, like it's getting fed to him again. He clenches the hilt, and a whole new bond ignites with the blade, and then it hits him. As Mikazuchi, the Imperial Dragon Knight's descendant, he can finally unleash the sword's real power. His confidence doesn't last, because he realizes he can only rely on the Divine Dragon Empire's combat style with his bare hands, directly against Vasil, and suddenly he's left wondering if he can actually pull it off. He locks eyes with the demonic swordsman, his presence crushes the air around them, and Ray can't help but doubt it. How is he supposed to beat a monster like this with sword moves he's never even trained for? Right then, Mikazuchi's spirit flashes in beside him, and the panic in the air makes him cut straight to the plan. He'll hand Raid a slice of his memories, his experience, and his magical power on the spot. But he warns it'll burn out in just a few minutes, and that the recoil will erase his spirit for good. His ghostly form locks eyes with Raid, hammering home the truth only he can beat Vasil. Then he delivers one last, solemn order, do it for the sake of tomorrow. Those words sink deep into Raid's bones. He bows his head for a breath, swallowing the brutal weight of this duty, and steels his courage for the fight that's about to explode. Until this moment, the stories of his ancestral roots and the survival of his people sounded grand, almost fake. Then reality hit, and everything changed. The new reality's origin stood right in front of him, every evil rooted in one terrifying form, made real and standing there in front of his eyes. With a foe pouring out straight-up killing intent, he clenched his fists and locked in. If this enemy was here to wipe them out, then he'd have to beat him in live. His resolve hardened into iron. He shouted straight to the spirit inside, "Mikitsuchi, I'm borrowing your power," and his voice rang like a promise. His inner spirit answered, voice sharp and proud, and the fog of doubt vanished. Then he said, "All right, let's start, my final blood relative with." That blessing detonated like a wave of magic, pouring an enormous amount of power straight into Raid. Then Mikitsuchi's knowledge, his techniques, and even his centuries of experience surged into him like they were his from the start. Power surged into his body, then, with Faye on his back and a brand new ornate sword in his grip, he reached out and touched his partner's hand. He shot Luna an apology and demanded she stay by him till the end, sure that with Luna at his side and this fresh strength coursing through him, he could finally stand toe-to-toe with his enemy. Vasil's opponent just smirked, clocking the Dragon Knight's return, and Vasil nodded that Raid always managed to top his expectations. Then Raid snapped back that the Imperial Dragon Knight was charging in, and Vasil was more than ready to take the challenge. As their wills crashed together, Vassal snapped, then unleashed a brutal blow, shattering the moonlit sky with a vicious scale-light moon break, roaring as energy blades tore across the heavens. Riding on Luna's back, Raid watches as the great white dragon slams out a savage attack, scale-light moonbreak, and she roars back, daring the universe to try, swearing their enemy won't touch Raid, not even with the point of a blade. The blast fades and Vassal drops back onto the ground, staring up through a tight grimace. There's a small wound smoking on his shoulder, but the dragon's mind doesn't shake him at all. Off sneered, calling Raid a brat and his 1,000 techniques worthless, but Raid, choking on Mikitsuchi's memories, shot back that Vasil has misjudged everything. Then he swore he'd unleash a sealing technique, the ultimate art called *** Night Power God ***. Declaration, he whips Luna onward, diving straight for Vasil as he shouts for the ancient power to roar it back to life. Right behind Vasil, a brutal vortex of pure darkness bursts open, and from its depths, eerie white chains whip out, snapping around the battlefield like a trap. They lock onto their target and clamp down on Vasil's body with iron-tight magical bindings. Then Vasil stares in shock as his eyes darken to black, the glowing restraints pulsing with raw power. He thrashes against his restraints, grunting through sheer effort as the vortex tries to drag him into its bottomless, pitch-dark abyss, while Raid and Luna watch from afar, eyes locked on every brutal second. Reality hits Raid like lightning. This is the ultimate technique that once trapped the Demon King, and right now Vassal is being dragged straight into another dimension. Even with that spell's terrifying power, Vassal spits a laugh, yanking his sword tight like it's nothing. Then Raid storms in, roaring that he won't let Vassal slip away. He lunges in and slams Vasil's blade with his own, and boom, sparks explode as steel crashes steel, trapping them in a brutal, desperate duel while those sealing chains keep the demons pinned in place. Sword Demon Vasil's eyes widened in shock as the sealing technique unleashed chains of light that snapped tight around it. Raid stared in disbelief. Those power-absorbing chains had pinned his magic and movement, yet Vasil still snapped his sword swings aside like it was nothing. Panic hit him hard. Could Vasil actually slip out of the ultimate sealing technique he dumped almost all his magic into? The second activation was already out of the question, and he knew Mikitsuchi's borrowed power was about to vanish for good. He clenched his teeth in pure frustration, because the portal to the other dimension sat right there, yet Vasil's resistance felt unstoppable. Chains of light bit deeper into the demon's form, burning bright as he thrashed and strained against the binding spells. Vasil snapped his gaze upward with a smug, condescending smirk, taunting the Raid as if it were nothing. Then he demanded to know if that was truly the full power of his sealing, sneering that it was just a pathetic knockoff of Mikitsuchi's. A demon's dark chuckle rolled through the air as Raid groaned, getting crushed by the pressure, while Faye froze, realizing a breath attack could shatter the fragile seal, and Rona just watched from too far away to reach him in time. Vassal's triumphant laughter rang out, and the moment it hit its peak, a brand new figure strode onto the battlefield, those heeled boots slamming firmly into the ground. A young girl with elven features burst into view, clutching a blazing orb of power, and she snapped that Vasil was the enemy of her clan, then promised to wipe him out on the spot, unleashing a roaring wave of energy. Fresh out of guard, Vasil erupted in disbelief as streams of water magic cinched around him. He snarled for answers, furious that a surviving water spirit dared to meddle. The girl stayed calm and hit him with the truth. It was Mir, she was the one trapping him. With the demon sealed tight, Ray yanks his polished sword free. The blade softly sings as he does. Then he shouts at Mily, voice iron strong, ordering her to handle the rest. Settled into a fight-ready stance, fists up, while the water spirit girl watched, her eyes snapping wide as a legendary knight's spectral form, Mikazuchi, materialized behind Raid, copying his exact posture like a ghostly twin. That familiar stance yanks up a flood of memories, only they're not Raid's, they're Mikazuchi's. Suddenly, a younger Vassal flashes in your mind, face twisted in raw rage, eyes burning with demonic power. He roars Mikazuchi's name and demands to know how he could have been crushed after grinding that hard to beat even the ancient dragons. The scene flashes back to before the fall. Mikazuchi leans in and says Vasil has won again. Like that kind of power is exactly what you'd expect from a guy who came from the east to topple the Demon King. Vasil lowers his eyes, almost humbled, admitting he's stunned that even the strongest knight of the divine dragon empire is praising him. Mikazuchi lays it all out in a study. Vasil's help could be the one thing that finally lets him finish the technique he needs to take down the Demon King. Vasil whips around with a razor-sharp turn, then thanks Mikazuchi for his help, but the moment he finishes, he makes it clear his real goal is to beat him. This brutal rivalry tore through countless sparring rounds, Mikazuchi's skill on full display as he slams Vasil to the ground, yet that stubborn knight refuses to stay down, springing back up as their blades snap into a furious, locked-in clash. Later on, Mikazuchi storms into Vasil's dim room and finds him sitting there alone. He steps right up to his rival and fires one sharp question: does he really want to beat him? The vision slips away and Raid snaps back to the present, then it hits him like a punch. Vasil's past, he finally gets it, because Mikazuchi's memories just laid it all bare. He finally stares into the demon's truth, and Vassal's only thought burns like fire: smash Mikazuchi, no matter what. His pride is so massive it chokes out everything else, forcing him to shed his humanity and become a demon just to make that goal happen. He flinched at the familiar words, even as Mikazuchi's spirit, through Raid, pushed that he needed more training, and Vassal erupted in a roar, swearing that his old rival couldn't use Raid's face to talk to him. Raid roared as he tapped into the spirit's power, unleashing the dragon-piercing awakening, an elite divine dragon empire dragon knight secret technique, while a ghostly, skeletal burst of energy shot out and slammed Vasil right in the chest. That strike crumpled Vasil and sent him staggering while a jagged dark aura churned around him. Raid, burning with Mikazuchi's righteous rage, shouted that this was for the water spirits, the cat spirits, and every ancestor Vasil had murdered. His eyes flared with pure hatred as he roared that Raid had better apologize to them all in the afterlife. The brutal vision exploded into nothing, yanking Ray back to the present. He stood alone in a quiet clearing while the past's echoes faded away, and Mily watched him from just a few steps off. He stared at the dagger in his grip, and the moment he did, he knew exactly what he'd just witnessed. The Nightblade God, the ultimate technique that locks its target in place and even seals the space around it. That knowledge hit him like a stone in the chest, and he couldn't stop thinking. Without Mikazuchi's memories, he would have spent his whole life clueless. Then a small smile tugged at his lips as he finally admitted it. What an insane, unbelievable ancestor he came from. The borrowed power vanished for good. Just like that, the timer ran out and the direct link snapped shut. Still, Mikazuchi's memories stayed, burning in his mind. He stared up at the sky and addressed the lingering spirit, saying he'd taken up their clan's legacy and sealed Vasil away, so hopefully his ancestor could finally rest. From the ethereal plane, Mikazuchi's spirit drifted in with a faint, proud smile, silently blessing the remarkable young man who now bore his will. As the fight finally ended, Raid sprinted back to his crew, Mily, Rona, and Luna, and they all stood shoulder to shoulder before a massive black monolith that had erupted from the earth, sealing sword demon Vasil right there. He stares down at the black monolith and it hits him. His Nightblade God technique didn't just work, it tore open a doorway to another world, with a swirling vortex of darkness churning above the seal like it's alive. While a demon attendant begs her demon king's forgiveness for letting him get away, Raid suddenly senses a monstrous magic power that rivals even the ancient dragons. Then Luna steps in, declares that she and Raid will go on alone from here, and tells everyone else to wait. You finally see where that power comes from when a rampaging pack of monsters, beastmen and winged demons included, comes barreling across the land with pure, ferocious intent. 3 figures take the lead: Gora, Fantorus, and a light-haired female attendant, and with a confident grin she says, "I knew it, Lord Vassal is defeated." From where he's standing, Raid feels the weight of it all crash down, because in front of him, the last sword demons, 6 attendants, and every one of their subordinates assemble in full force. He shouts that with Vasil sealed, there's no point in fighting. Yet inside, exhaustion crashes over him after he shattered the ancient dragon's circle, and he just wants to dodge more bloodshed. Agora stares him down, fury blazing across his face, and says that without their master, they've got one job now: bring the Demon King back to life. Spying how drained he was, Mily shoved Ray forward and begged her to keep going. Then he leaned in, admitted he'd burned nearly all his magic to seal Vasil, and warned her that if anything stronger shows up next, he won't have a single option left. When Gerard and Mariah sense his vulnerability, they step up fast, straight between Raid and the enemy horde. Gerard snaps that he can hand it over to them. They'll hold the line no matter what. Mariah then adds, "Fine, I'll be the shield if I have to." He stares at a towering horde of demons and realizes this won't end well if he charges in, so he hesitates, wondering whether he should still go through with sealing the Demon King, even if it costs his allies everything. Then crash, reinforcements slam down from the sky, a crew of dragons led by one who calls Gerard brother, and they've already smashed the other demons and hauled them in, promising they're here for the final fight. Gerard fires back his praise as the dragons roar, ready to take on what's left of the demonic horde. He roared as the draconic reinforcements surged forward with a thunderous charge, and with Hiskin roaring behind him, he shouted the order for their final, decisive push. As the dragons crashed forward, Raid stared while his allies swept into the fray. Then the demon attendants freaked out. Fantor's face twisted with pure rage as he spat curses at the ancient dragons for stepping in. And just like that, the battle roared to life with his draconic friends beside him. Then Raid's focus snapped to Luna. He threw out a fast apology, swore he'd be back soon, and told his crew to stand their ground. When Luna lunged into a spinning vortex of darkness, he watched them get pulled forward, racing toward whatever waited next. Clinging to the top, Luna, sheer rage tears through the sky, lightning snapping and crackling around them as they rocket forward at terrifying speed. As they near their destination, a massive monstrous creature lumbers into view, chained tight, with a glowing magical link that bites into its spiky hide. The creature's single eye snaps onto him, glaring like a torch from above. Then the demon growls, recognizing Mika Zuchai's descendant on the wind, and demanding to know if Raid is here to wipe him out. When asked, the Demon King erupts in a roaring blast of magical power, bragging that it's basically endless. Then the sheer weight of its presence hits Raid like a punch, and he flinches hard. He almost steadies himself, then realizes the threats are pointless. He knows sealing techniques inside out, and he can see Mika Zuchai's seal is still perfectly active, leaving the demon totally helpless right now. The Demon King's stunned, no fear at all, so he starts to doubt himself, blinks hard and asks, "Am I losing my mind, or do you really mean to destroy it?" It suddenly changes tactics, luring Raid with promises of raw power, because the demon swears that once he takes its hand, he'll glimpse the abyss of sorcery, rewrite the world's truth, and even lock himself into eternal life. The creature keeps pushing, promising to turn him into a demon like Vassal, with any wish at his fingertips, but Raid just sits there, stone calm, and asks if the mighty Demon King is seriously begging for its life now. He talks back, and when Luna shouts his name, he pushes forward, claiming, "I'm nothing but a humble dragon caretaker." The demon snarls through a pained grunt as the magical seal flares brighter, like it's burning into the truth. He thrusts a glowing crystal up to the sky and vows he wants nothing but a peaceful life in the dragon country, then slams it into the chain to hammer the ancient seal even tighter. He lunges the glowing crystal at the monolith and shoves its power straight inside. When the bright blast hits the sealed Demon King, the trapped monster spasms back, screaming in brutal agony as the magical prison clamps down even harder. The monstrous thing gets swallowed by a blinding burst of light, its body shatters and cracks apart. It roars in pure confusion, yelling that it can't understand what Vasil is doing, begging for instant release, but its voice gets erased as the power surges and drowns everything out. When the blinding light finally fades, Raid steadies himself on Luna's back and looks back, grim-faced but unbreakable, muttering that the ordeal is finally over. He and Luna shot into the sky, and the monolith, once so loud, stood still and peaceful in the middle of the lake, while the forest around it stayed totally undisturbed. Their escape whisks them back to a clearing where their allies are already waiting, Rona, Malaria, and Mily in the mix, surrounded by a roaring crowd of dragons. And the second Rona spots him, relief hits hard as she blurts his name. He drops down, and the second he lands, Mily and Malaria greets him. His face lights up with a warm smile as he proudly announces, "I'm back." Just as the group starts to regroup, Luna whips around midair and fires a question at Gerard. What happened to the demons? Gerard answers fast. Every one of them screamed and burst into nothing right before Raid came back. Aru stared into the grim void nearby, and she told him the demons simply collapsed in a chain reaction the moment the Demon King vanished, thanks to the Holy Sword's brutal power. Then her eyes sank with regret as she admitted, in a bitter whisper, she didn't manage to die and is still stuck alive. She explains it like this: later, they found out only the ones who swore total loyalty to the Demon King got shattered with him, Since she didn't fully fall in line, she survived. Raid looks around at the wreckage and admits everyone's battered, but he's still breathing easy, and says they should pray at the monolith before they head back to the dragon country. But right as he finishes his words, the whole ground rips with a tremor, and the monolith in the water starts thrashing like it's about to explode. His eyes blow wide with pure shock as he screams for everyone to launch into the sky, right now. As the monolith prison starts to collapse, the dragons snap into action, obeying the command to evacuate and bursting into the stormy, rain-choked sky. In the middle of the chaos, a brand new figure bursts into view, his eyes pure black, burning with rage, and he roars out Raid's name, while Raid answers by screaming the sword demon's name, Vasil. The armored demon glares at Raid, asking how he ever dared to seal the demon king, then Raid explains it perfectly. By sealing the whole space, he trapped the demon in its own pocket, beyond the demon-destroying protection's reach, cutting it off from any outside interference. Rage now pounding as the dragons scatter, he locks onto one and declares it the last descendant of Mikazuchi. Then with a savage roar, he hammers it down with his massive blade, blaming the dragon for simply existing. His sword tore through the air with a brutal, devastating slash, dropping his enemy and mowing down several other dragons in the blast zone. As the slaughter unfolds, Raid's stomach drops. This is way worse than he thought. He clocks it instantly. Luna can't pull off a breath attack anymore. The ancient dragon's swings are slow and heavy, and every single person is running on fumes. He whips around to Luna with a plan. He's going to hold Vasil, then orders her to get everyone out, call the Fae, and summon the sky dragons from the divine dragon empire for backup. Luna snaps back, calling it reckless and warning him his body and magic are already on the edge, begging him to think of his comrades, lives first. Their eyes lock for one breath, and in that instant, they silently trade the exact same understanding. As the raid thunders onto Luna's back, Gerard speaks from nearby, his voice a deep, steady rumble as he simply says, "I understand." He even turns to Luna and shoots her a direct question like, "Are you really saying that?" Then he tells her straight, if this is Raid's call, then trusting him is part of a partner's job too. She begged him not to, but Raid wouldn't budge. Then magic chains burst from the ground, snapping into a massive net, and he shouted for Luna to run now as his dragon binding, sealing technique went fully active. She obeyed his command, and her and the other dragons blasted into the sky, vanishing from the battlefield, while her last thought was a frantic plea that he wouldn't die. With the dragons safely cleared, Raid stood on the web of chains and stared down his opponent, watching Vasil simmer with rage. The demon clamped a bleeding fist, his voice drawn tight with fury, wondering just how brutal it was that someone nothing like Mikazuchi had ended up defeating the demon king. Rage surged through Vasil as he crouched low, snapping that he needed more flesh and bellowing for Raid to become his sacrifice. Raid didn't blink, braced up tight, and dared him to come. He tore forward in blinding speed and smashed Raid across the face with a brutal backhand. Impact jolted Raid's head snapping back, and a sharp grunt of pain burst out. The strike hit him like a wrecking ball, and just as he reeled, he clocked the one opening that Vasil's huge frame left wide open. He seized his opening, then snapped into action, spinning on the spot. Raid lunged in like a storm, sword first, refusing to let his opponent wriggle away. Vasil stared at the attack, his mind racing, wondering if Raid could really hold the line from that wrecked, exposed position. His blade was nothing but a decoy. Then Raid snapped into the Divine Dragon Empire's Dragonwing Waltz, driving his armored fist into Vasil's abdomen, and the moment it landed, he felt it with chilling clarity. The power he'd inherited from Mikazuchi was gone. The punch hit dead on, yet Vasil barely even twitched, his dark eyes sharpened as the sealing technique's chains cinched around his feet, quietly sucking his magic dry, step by step. He scoffed at the whole attempt, swatting Raid's efforts aside as petty stunts from the very guy who toppled the Demon King, then snapped, asking why his own body, the one that paid everything for power, was still being held back. Across from him, Raid tightened his grip and braced, because he knew he couldn't afford to go for the demon's head. Raid snapped that he, Vasil, had just lost humanity's strongest weapon, and Vasil stared back with narrowed eyes, demanding to know what in the world Raid meant by that. He roared at his own body, because it's the one that's mastered the sword Rishengrila, perfected over hundreds of years through Divine Dragon Empire sword techniques, the true strongest weapon, and then he exploded forward, thrusting his blade as it slammed into the Raid's. He shoved aside the demon's blade, snapping that Vasil was dead wrong. Then he stomped hard, reignited the magical chains, and declared he was about to unveil humanity's true strongest weapon. He slapped his hand to his chest and declared his truth: the heart is the strongest weapon. He remembered every time others had saved him, their support burning brighter his need to save them back, and that's what Vasil lost. His heart, the bond it brought. He kept hammering his accusations, claiming Vasil had sold out his comrades and homeland just to sharpen his skills, trading demonic power for humanity's greatest weapon, and walking away with nothing but a brutal, empty obsession to outshine Mikazuchi. With pure conviction blazing in his chest, he lifted his sword again. He charged in hard, but Vassal swatted the strike aside with effortless ease. Boom. The impact blasted a shockwave that tore across Raid's cheek, and the demon just laughed at him, taunting, "Show me your so-called strongest weapon with your own eyes." What? He seized the moment, taunting Raid for failing to crush him, and with a chilling grin he vowed to show his true power, until every last spark in Raid's will to revive snapped. With the demon's blade closing in, Raid panicked and slammed a protective power into place, shouting for demon-slaying protection just as a weak, flickering light burst between them. The light barely fazed Vasil. He just smirked like it was nothing, even as he praised Raid's skill as an Imperial dragon knight. Then he leaned in with deadly confidence and declared that Raid's body would shatter long before his power could ever change the outcome. He blurts out his reckless plan. Before he even hits the ground, he'll wreck Vasil with the power of the heart, the one the demon threw away. Vasil just stares back, ice cold, and takes the challenge head-on. As they crash through the sky, Vasil snatches Raid's arm and snarls, "Why would you unleash Raiden's power if your only plan was to take us both down with you from that massive height?" The truth behind that brutal close quarters move hits instantly when Raid hurls his blade straight into Vasil's back. The demon bellows, and then it finally clicks. This was Raid's whole plan from the start, a setup built to take down one of the four heavenly kings. Vassal lets out a savage, mocking laugh, then blasts Raid flying, screaming that no mere human could ever survive a lie like that. Sent hurtling toward the ground, Raid's voice blares inside Vasil's head, demanding to know if he's really forgotten humanity's deadliest weapon, because the heart, Vasil believes, can reach across species and make you care anyway. Like the universe just snapped to attention, a great white dragon rockets up from below and snatches Raid right out of the air, and from high overhead, Vasil watches as Luna breaks down, screaming his name. He braces safely on her back, and when he locks eyes with Luna, relief hits him so hard he almost can't breathe. He thanks her for saving him and swears he'll never lose her again. He stares at the sky, then whips his gaze to the horizon. There, a squadron of dragons charges straight toward them. He shouts, demanding whoever said Luna was the only one coming to help. Up above, Vasil can't believe it, stunned that an ancient dragon with drained magical power somehow got here this fast. Just as the dragons come barreling in, the truth flashes. It's Faye and Gerard leading the charge, and they slam the message to Raid. "We're here to help, so you're free to step back." Then Gerard lets out a thunderous roar, and the whole pack of dragons swarms in to tear the demon apart. They huddle up, throwing all their strength behind their proud friend, the Imperial Dragon Knight, reborn in their world, and from the sky above, the stunned Vasil locks on and realizes the arrivals are sky dragons. He roars as his eyes twist into black pits of raw fury, and when the dragon's overwhelming force hits, the Heavenly King thrusts out his claim. This is the moment to show them his pride. Far off, Raid stands ready, blazing in a brilliant aura. The dragons unleash one crushing torrent of power, then that blinding beam rockets straight at Vasil. Raid roars through the chaos, calling him a traitor to the divine dragon empire, a knight who ditched his master and left his dragon brothers behind. He spits that Vasil will now die by the same fury he abandoned. Trapped in the blast, Vasil can only gasp in disbelief as he wonders if his body is really getting beaten by the very sky dragons he used to serve. A tidal surge of draconic power crashes down on him and devours everything, his body dissolving into searing, white-hot flames. Seeing the fallen knight hits Mikazuchi's spectral form like a wave of grief, his face twists with pain as he whispers through tears, remembering he once had friends who truly understood him and dragon mouths he loved. All he has left is one brutal truth, nothing but regret, while the last traces of that forgotten figure crumble to dust at the water's edge. After the great battle, a smoking crater the size of a nightmare sits in the land where the final blow landed, and the ancient power's name, *Mikazuchi***, hangs in the dead silent air. The dead air snaps, every dragon standing together unleashes one massive, victory-roaring cry, and their thunderous shouts rip through the wrecked battlefield. Lord Luna watches as Raid snaps his gaze toward her, and when he turns his head, concern hits her voice hard. She's staring at his battered, bruised body like the fight left its mark. She flashes a tired little smile, apologizes for dragging him into worry, and without missing a beat, tells him she's deeply grateful for everything she's been doing to help. Then boom, the ghostly Mikazuchi flickers into existence, and it's like a whisper that says, "Sure, we've got a lot to talk about, but first, soak up the victory's warmth." Raid stares, thrown off for a beat. Luna then turns to the other dragons with a proud grin, crowning this massive win as her partners, Raid-S. And right on cue, Gerard and Faye lead the charge as the whole pack erupts in cheers, shouting, "Raid the Dragon Tamer." and even proclaiming him the new Imperial Dragon Knight. They burst into the skies as she delivers a formal decree. Now every last soul of dragonkind pledges its divine protection to the brand new Imperial Dragon Knight. Raid reels as her words slam into him. Just what does protection really mean when the Imperial Dragon Knights are involved? Days crawl by, and about 10 days later, the world starts to shift. Ever since the Demon King crumbled, the monsters have vanished from the streets, peace is crawling back everywhere. The Divine Dragon Empire and its neighbors are finally breathing easy again, and now dragons soar freely above the towns like they never left. In that peaceful clearing, Luna and the other dragons' wounds have finally started to fade, and while they rest, human caretakers quietly tend to them. In a quiet room, Roanna's eyes glued to her book. Then she snaps out, screaming for help as a fresh wave of pain starts closing in right outside. That sound came from Raid, still sprawled in bed, and before he could even settle, Rona burst into his side, talking fast as she warned him not to try moving yet, reminding him he'd been bedridden for 3 days. Raid thanked her for worrying and asked if she'd been bored, and Rona only grinned, lifting her book like a trophy. She wasn't bored at all, because she'd been glued to stories about the gods. Rona blurts out how shocked she is that she's into mythology, then says the divine dragon empire Lazaria has legends about gods forging races in the world. Yet the cat spirit tribe's stories line up too, until she points out the kicker. The myths in the dragon country aren't the same. Her bright smile slips away the moment she lowers her gaze to the book, and seriousness settles in like a storm. Then she starts the story, saying, long, long ago. They're yanked into a world where only gods walked around, an age of wild, untamed landscapes and crumbling ruins older than time itself. In the ancient days, a wingman sprawls defeated across scorched earth, and then a voice snaps in the silence, daring to ask how far he'll fall, right as a gigantic clawed foot slams down beside him. The mighty dragon roars and hurls a catastrophic surge of energy, blasting the ground apart like it's nothing. The chaos traces back to a dark-haired man with pointed ears, smirking like he owns the world as he watches. The winged man who got crushed snarls back, screaming that no matter how hard Noriris tears everything apart, his hunger will never be satisfied, calling him Demon God Noriris. Noriris doesn't even blink, he just says, cool as ice, that his desires will be fulfilled, starting now. He finally spills his grand master plan, making it crystal clear that everything that happened was just the opening act, and then he dares his real opponent. If you come out for who you truly are, the one he adores will be dragged into the spotlight too. His eyes lock onto 2 dragons, one of them is the red dragon Gerard. Nariris turns to the other, a breathtaking, light-scaled beast, calling her his old friend, the divine dragon Edelgrepas, the very ancestor of all dragons. Then he drops the truth, the whole scheme was meant to hunt her. He stormed up to his former ally, firing off one brutal question, why betray him and join the dragon's side? Then he drove the truth into them, every rule they swore to together, and reminded them that the weak were never meant to live free, they exist only to be crushed into fuel for the strong. His face crumpled with real pain as he demanded, why would you all betray me? His eyes snapped to the divine dragon, Edelgrepas, and he greeted it like an old friend. Then the dragon's massive eyes narrowed right back at him. Edelgrapes confessed their change of heart, admitting they finally saw the truth. What they'd been doing was evil, and it was because they'd never had love. Nariris scoffed at it like pure nonsense, arguing it was insane to stake the divine race's future on something so shaky. Then he snapped back that it's love, not guarantees, that can actually pull off the impossible. The tension snapped. Nariris blurted that he'd waited his whole life for this second, but the dragon crashed its roar down on him and slammed shut the path forward, then blasted a crushing beam from its maw that swallowed the whole battlefield and left only blinding light. Right here in the present, Roanna devoured the book's last lines, and that gut punch passage hit hard. A mother chooses death beside her child, refusing to abandon them, no matter what it costs. Raid sprawled on his bed, listened, and finally snapped. Wait, this is the first time I've ever heard a story about the ancient dragon's ancestors. The way it was described was so insanely detailed it felt like someone was handing him a real piece of history. Roanna snapped the book shut like the final curtain, saying the story was done. Then she turned to ask what came next when Luna's voice rang from the doorway. So, Raid, is he behaving? Rona's whole face lit up when she saw her. She practically bounced and announced that she and Mararia were going to bake catnip bread, then waved her off. Right after, Luna slipped into the room, flashed a warm smile at Raid, and held up a clean white cloth. She asks how his injuries are doing, and Ray finally tells her the truth. Because of her and everyone's care, he's already bounced back a ton, though his insides are still healing. Then he admits he never saw that brutal magical backlash coming, and for now, the divine dragon Imperial sword is completely off limits. He nearly jumps out of his skin when Luna unveils the sword they've been talking about, Reeden, and he swears he thought it had already been handed back to the cat spirit tribe at Shangri-La. Luna straight up tells him it was sent all the way from the tribe's leader in Moraria, and since it originally belonged to the Imperial Dragon Knight Mikazuchi, they believe it should stay in his bloodline, passed down to Raid. Then she leans in with hope, praying he never has to swing it again, because this time there won't be any more enemies. She second-guesses her own words, then slips the blade back into its sheath, but she doesn't put it away for good. I'll keep it for a bit, she tells herself, because if Raid got his hands on it too soon, he'd definitely drive himself past the limit. He gives a small, knowing smile and he nods, telling her to bring it back only after he's fully healed, because yeah, he gets it, she's still furious about what happened. And the truth, he pushed himself way too far. Then he yawns wide, rushing an apology to Luna, and decides to grab one more bite of sleep, pulling the covers up over himself. Before he can even drop down, she slams the brakes on his plans with a bold suggestion, wait, what if you rest here? And offers her lap as a cozy place for his head. Raid looks up, eyes bulging with shock. His eyes widen as he finally absorbs that shocking offer out of nowhere. He drops his head down, and the first thing that hits him is just how insanely soft it feels. Then it hits him, realization snaps into place, and in his flustered state he realizes that soft, gentle scent is Luna's. He tilts his head up and sees her beaming down at him, all warm and gentle as he settles comfortably into her lap. She leans in and stares at him, a sweet blush spreading across her cheeks as she whispers his name like it's something she's always wanted to say. She glances up with worry, asking if her legs will go numb, and he tells her she doesn't have to push through it. But she waves off his concern fast. This is something she wants to do for him, so it's okay. And then she smiles and adds the truth. Partners always stay side by side. With a soft smile, she pushes for his yes, and all he can do is nod along, agreeing with every word. In that calm, breath-held moment, neither of them had a clue what was coming next, because the deadly days of combat about to ignite would slam into their lives, and that single fateful encounter would rewrite their destiny forever. While he catches his breath, a weird chill hits him, like a voice is calling his name from far away, its whisper echoing inside his skull as he panics. Who are you? A bright morning boom, a voice shouts, Raid, from the other side of a shut door, and when he cracks it open, a gentle smile spreads as he glances out like, yep, today's another perfect day. Then she greets him warmly, declares breakfast is ready, and even though he's still in his sleepwear, Ray nods along, promising he'll get ready and be there in no time. A whole year has slammed by since the Demon Clan battle, and while time kept turning, the Dragon Kingdom has been quietly transforming. Now, from a balcony, he and Luna stare down at a lively port where dragons glide through the water like it's their playground. Downstairs, Roanna beams and calls Raid Big Brother, wishing him a bright good morning, while Milfy gives a soft greeting of her own as they carry out a basket of just-baked bread. After the meal, he thanks them both, and Luna jumps in, offering to help with the cleanup, so Milfy gratefully takes her up on it. Roanna's holding her baby from the cat spirit tribe and blurts out an apology for making everyone help prepare food, then Roanna presses her to eat anyway. Her stomach turns tentative, and when Raid's own growling belly finally cuts in, he declares, all right, time to start the meal. What? She puffs out her chest with full-on pride, claiming everything's perfectly fine, then boldly declares she's officially the big sister for the whole cat spirit clan. With things finally quiet and the monsters fading back, she tells everyone that many of her people have rushed home to rebuild, and fueled by that drive, she's ready to throw herself into her own part. Words weigh on Raid's mind. He tries to dodge risks, because families with infants and pregnant mothers stayed back in the Dragon Kingdom, while everyone with free time pitches in, making meals and handling chores. Still, he can't shake how wild it is to realize he was once treasured by his own parents, the exact same way. Elsewhere, Aru barges into the room, stretches like she owns the place, and asks Milfy if she can grab breakfast. Milfy, totally used to this, says sure, but warns Aru she'll have to help clean up later. She loudly grumbles that her breakfast portion is way too small, and Raid clocks the whole exchange, remembering how Milfy used to hate Aru so viciously she'd attack her on sight, and now they're actually chatting like normal people, which screams that Aru's infamous rage has finally cooled off. Her complaint gets shot down instantly. Luna dismisses her with a deadpan, saying it's all in her head. Red-faced, Aru bursts out that it's not her imagination at all, and just like that, she rips away the calm she'd been wearing a second ago. He stepped in and told Luna they'd be headed for the very center of the Dragon Kingdom today, explaining that, sure, they usually babysit ancient dragons or haul in materials, but this time the whole plan is completely different, ending the sentence there. It drops the truth fast. This is the day of a massive ceremony, and Raid, Aru, Rona, and Luna, fully in her true dragon form, march right beside a roaring procession of dragons toward a giant open battlefield. The moment Raid arrives, he spots everyone already packed in. Then Alburn, the Dragon King, steps forward and rips through the crowd with the announcement, "The time for the Dragon Vein ceremony has come." With a thunderous command, he orders everyone there to send their prayers up to the divine dragon, Edel Grylas, and in perfect sync, the entire host of dragons bows their heads in sacred, solemn reverence. The sheer scale of this event hits like a truck. Raid can only stand there, watching in silence as wave after wave of powerful beings bows in perfect unison, and he realizes he just got struck without ever seeing it coming. He quietly mouths the name he just heard at Elgrylas, and then it hits him. This is the legendary divine dragon, the one every ancient dragon bows down to. His mind keeps racing back. This is the same guy who once battled the demon king beside his ancestor, Mikazuchi. It was Edel Grylas who handed Lee Eden the holy sword from the divine dragon and blessed it with demonic annihilation. When the prayer finally ends, he looks at the others and tells them, "You can relax now." Right as the dragons start to surge forward, Raid's eyes snag on something that shouldn't exist, an absurdly huge object looming in front of him, with one single colossal horn ripping up from the earth, and he just stands there, stunned. He fixed his eyes on that colossal relic, and when he saw how massive the horn was, he couldn't ignore it. The divine dragon's body had to dwarf every ancient dragon that ever lived. He realized this was a shard that had torn off in the Demon King's battle, and when he heard about the Dragon Vein ceremony, the horn-only ritual that happens just once every few centuries, his voice cracked with awe because this was his first time seeing it, and he couldn't help wondering how they were going to use. Raid couldn't believe it when the horn answered back. It erupted in a blazing glow, blasting a towering pillar of light straight into the sky, while the Dragon King Alburn stood frozen before the relic, staring with his mouth hanging wide. The beam of light kept surging upward, a blazing beacon tearing straight through the clouds. He finally got it, the Dragon Vein ceremony. The ancient dragons didn't just watch fate unfold, they fed on magic just to survive, and now they were using the horn to drink in a massive surge of energy pulled straight from the dragon veins that ran wild across the whole kingdom. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Roanna and Milphy, staring at the breathtaking spectacle. Then someone told him the truth. Once every few centuries, when the dragon veins start to weaken, the reigning Dragon King performs this ceremony to rip them back to life. When that brilliant light finally dimmed, Luna, still in her dragon form, snapped that he shouldn't move yet because something bigger was coming and she wouldn't let him miss it. He stared at her, totally confused, while Faye and Gerard fixed their eyes on the sky, holding their breath for what happened next. He finally got it, so why were they all still frozen in place? Luna leaned in and broke it down. Humans sometimes get skills from the heavens, and this ceremony was believed to end with one last heavenly gift for the dragons. Like a brilliant object torn from the sky, it slammed toward them at full speed. Gerard bellowed a desperate warning, screaming for everyone to fall back. A blinding flash ripped through the air as the object slammed into the ground, blasting a wall of dust, and even the nearby dragons staggered back like they'd been punched. Through the crater gouged by that brutal impact, a figure finally emerges as the dust starts to settle. Raid snaps his shield up, squints hard, and his voice fades into stunned disbelief as his mind tries to catch up with what he's seeing. It turns out the thing from the heavens isn't an object at all. It's a girl, young and motionless like she's just asleep, completely unharmed, wearing a peaceful, serene face. That's the gift meant for the dragons. Her sudden arrival hits like a shockwave, confusion and awe rippling through the dragons gathered around her. Roanna blurts for Luna and Gerard, but her mind buckles under the crushing power pouring off that sleeping girl, while the other dragons shift and squirm, unsettled. Right as they hesitate, the Dragon King Albert drops down from the skies, his voice a deep, warning growl. He tells them in no uncertain terms to keep their distance, not to rush toward the girl, and to understand she isn't just a person, she's a divine being. Albert's ancient eyes locked onto her and pierced past what everyone else missed. Then he felt it, the wild, crushing amount of magic packed into her tiny body, and a shocking realization finally started to surface. His thoughts harden into unshakable certainty. Then he blurts out a declaration that leaves everyone frozen, confirming his suspicion out loud. The girl is a divine being. That word hangs there, and the other dragons erupt into shocked whispers, struggling to decode it, half expecting her to be some kind of fake god. Because a drop like this has never happened before, not since the age of the great divine dragon, and now they can't stop asking what it means for a god to be treated like the kingdom's gift. What? In the chaos, Luna snapped into action and spun to Raid with a frantic plea. She apologized for the trouble, then begged him to rush the divine girl to the Cat Spirit Tribe's village for safety, because she had to report to her superiors right away. When Raid heard how serious it was, he didn't even think twice. He agreed on the spot. He drops to his knees beside the unconscious girl, staring at her face, and recognition snaps across his features. Luna asks if he's okay, and he answers with a calm, unshakable no. His cryptic answer hangs in the air, while life keeps chugging along in the cat spirit tribe's village, and everyone totally clueless waits for the divine guests about to crash in. Two villagers trade whispers on a wooden platform, and one insists there's nothing unusual to report. In a hush-filled room, a divine girl lies unconscious in bed, while Luna in her elven form leans in and carefully tends to her, and Raid sits in a nearby chair watching every breath her hand twitches, sparking a tiny swirl of light. As they stare at her, Luna can't stop herself. She's blown away, stunned that a divine being with that kind of overwhelming magic could even exist. But Raid can't shake the unease. He's rattled by the fact she's unconscious, and even more, he can't make sense of why a god would just fall out of the sky. He leans into the legends he's heard, and suddenly the stories hit him, divine tales echoing all across the world, worshipped as creator gods, with power so immense they can mold the world and birth countless races. That means this divine being descending on the Dragon Kingdom as a gift hits even harder, an event so massive it's never happened on this scale before. Keeping a steady watch over the sleeping girl, Raid lets out a quiet prayer that her fall won't be violent, while Luna stays locked in silence, her face carved with raw, heavy worry. He whips his head to Luna and silently confirms her worry, and yeah, he gets it, because a divine being just dropped out of the sky the instant the Dragon Kingdom finally tasted peace. Then he leans in and admits there's something else gnawing at him. He can't stop wondering about it. His mind snaps back to that dream, when the face and voice in it blurred into nothing, and he finally gets it. It wasn't random at all, it was Mikazuchi's memory, the very same one who handed him magic, taught him swordsmanship, and gave him the clan's knowledge after he crushed Vasil. In that inherited memory, a tiny piece of Mikazuchi's personal life slammed into him. He even remembers a face for the briefest second, nearly identical to the kid lying there. And suddenly it all clicks. The woman from his dream and this girl are shockingly, painfully alike. That implication slams into him, his eyes flare wide, and he realizes the jarring link to Mikazuchi's memories. He snaps his gaze back to the girl, thoughts sprinting wildly. Could this be something deeper, a karmic bond, a destiny tied all the way back to Mikazuchi's era, where his age-old war with the Demon King and his clan is woven into it? She leaned in as Aru explained why she was there, and she didn't dodge the truth. Yep, she'd slacked off during the Dragon Vein ceremony, felt some weird power hit her, and went looking for it. With worry creasing her face, Ray decided the only way forward was to question the girl the moment she woke up, straight up, what happened. While he was still stuck in thought, Era cut him off and demanded the girl's name, because the magic she was giving off was on par with the Divine Dragon Emperor's sword. She asked if the girl was somehow related to the Divine Dragon, then shook the thought off on the spot. Ray nodded and said her first instinct was right, but it was still wrong in the end. She rubbed her chin, processing the shock like it burned, and thought, Aru can't possibly be right. How could a real divine being drop into their era like this? Then her mind snapped back to the Divine Dragon's horn, remembering, clear as day, how she had watched it break off with her own eyes in the Dragon Kingdom. You could basically bet the girl's descent happened because of that horn. Back in ancient days, anything tied to a god got used like a bridge, letting that divine power slip into the mortal world. Ray thought about it and a small smirk flickered across his lips. He still couldn't wrap his head around the idea that people once could just summon gods at will, yet the part that truly defied explanation was this. No matter what, a different god always showed up. Right as he started overthinking, Rona cut in. She'd figured everything out, and said she was stepping away for a bit, warning him, "Don't you dare think about leaving the Dragon Kingdom until she wakes up." Raid went red-faced, swearing he wasn't plotting anything, claiming he just wanted distance from the divine being, and telling Rona to stop acting like she knew something. Their fight got snapped shut by a gentle sound. The divine girl's eyes fluttered open. Aru choked on a breath, clapped a hand over her mouth, and realized the girl was awake. She forced herself upright into a sitting position, and the whole room went dead quiet except for the faint rustle of her bedsheets. Then the divine woke up. Her eyes flicked over all of them, then locked onto Raid, Luna, and Aru, whose mouths hung open in shock. The whole room went dead silent as this newly awakened girl just stared them down. Her eyes snapped open, pure confusion, and she jolted up, asking, "Where am I?" Raid stepped in fast and told her she was in the Dragon Kingdom, the home of the ancient dragons. She mouthed the words to herself, the meaning locking behind an unreadable expression. Now she sat bolt upright in bed, and Raid, Luna, and Aru crowded around her. Then she froze for a heartbeat, eyes sparkling with real curiosity, and blurted, "What's an ancient dragon?" The words hit like a thunderclap, because it basically screamed that the girl they swore was divine had amnesia. In a quiet room, the light-haired girl jolts upright in bed and snaps her gaze between Raid and Luna. Completely baffled, she blurts out, "Who are you?" and Raid nearly jumps out of his skin. Then it hits even harder. Raid can't help but wonder, who is she? But one look and bam, she has amnesia, so there's no way to interrogate her. So Raid steels himself and decides the only move is starting with introductions. He finishes his speech by calling himself Raid Drayson, then whips his hand toward Luna and Aru, telling the girl, straight and simple, that she's a divine being god and that her sudden arrival rattled them all, while she stays calm and confirms it's true. He let out a huge breath of relief, at least they could finally talk, and then he turned to Luna, telling her to drop the stiff manners, because every bit of formality made it harder for him to say what he needed. The girl takes it all in, then taps her chin like she's trying to solve a mystery. What am I supposed to be called? I don't even know my own name. Raid hears her out, instantly getting the trap she's stuck in. She blurts out that she needs a name to answer to until her memory comes back, and since Raid was the one who explained everything so kindly, she asks him to pick the perfect name for her, only to watch his face freeze when he realizes just how heavy that responsibility really is. Her eyes lit up with raw, hopeful anticipation, and she just waited, hanging on his next words like they could change everything. Her hopeful gaze shoots straight through him and leaves him rattled, so after a quick pause, he snaps himself together, points ahead with iron resolve, and declares he's chosen her name. And there it is, her name is Kalmia. She whispers it again under her breath, and a delicate blush creeps up her cheeks as the meaning finally sinks in. Her face lights up with pure delight, and Kalmia blurts that it sounds incredible, like a name made for magic. Seeing how thrilled she is, Raid steps in and offers to introduce her to everyone else who calls the Dragon Nation's home. Right as he was about to blurt out the name he'd been chasing, Kalmia suddenly hit his mind, so vivid it stole his breath. Raid couldn't help wondering if it slipped in from Mikazuchi's memories, or if the Imperial Dragon Knight had somehow known this girl. He knew it had to be her real name, but it only opened a storm of questions. What did it mean? Why did she come to the Dragon Nation? How did she tie into his dream? And most of all, why was her mind wiped clean? Questions about Mikazuchi kept buzzing in everyone's head, but right now Kiyomiya had bigger fires to put out. So she marched through the Dragon Nation, trading greetings with everyone, and thanks to the Dragon King's order, she was allowed to stay until her memories came back, while the always-ready cat spirit tribe offered help that she politely brushed aside. As they walked, her eyes snapped down to the ground and she froze, staring in awe at a gigantic, glowing fissure that blazed like an endless river of mana, roaring underground. Faye's senses sharpened way beyond normal. She realized mana can't usually be seen unless magic circles or spells force it into view, yet Kiyomiya, even with her divine powers sealed away, still stared straight through it and tracked every flow of mana perfectly. Then they burst out of the passage, and Mikazuchi noticed them coming. Their journey shoved them right in front of another of the nation's terrifying powered dragons, the great red dragon, Gerard, who looked at Kamiya and called her Divine One, then introduced himself. Kamiya answered politely, and Raid couldn't help but smirk at the whole scene. He explained how he suddenly showed up. When he heard a guest from the divine race had arrived, he blurted that he wanted to give her a sky tour of the Dragon Nation, and as soon as he said it, his face lit up with pure excitement, and I couldn't wait. I snapped it up and eagerly said yes. Dragon swooped down, folded up his wings, and beckoned Kamiya to climb aboard, right as Roanna and Milfi shot up in panic, warning her that Gerard's flying was brutal and she'd crash and burn in midair. Hearing both sides hit Kamiya like a sudden shock, and she just froze, stunned. Another voice cut in Luna, now in her true dragon form. Kamiya stared in awe, gushing that Luna was adorable as a girl, but as a dragon she looked gallant and graceful, pure royalty. Pride surged through Luna's chest, thrilled that a divine one like Kamiya had praised her. Spotting her chance, she snapped into action and offered a safer route. Luna told Raid to clamber onto her back first, then use his strength to haul Kamiya up, because nobody was getting left behind, and Gyurar even swore he'd fly right alongside them as their escort. Raid did exactly what he was told, sliding onto the dragon's massive back with Counter right beside him, and when the sharp scales threatened to slice her, he thrust his gloved hand out to protect her. She glanced his way, surprise flashing for a beat, then took it before accepting them. A young girl watches, nerves tight, as Raid, already perched on Luna's back, asks if the dragon's ready, and Luna growls out that she's absolutely ready. Then Raid declares they're leaving, and Luna's massive wings slam open as they take off. A brutal upward surge yanks a grimace from her face, and Luna rockets into the sky. Then they snap into formation with the other dragons, slicing through the clouds like a storm. As they finally level out, he whips around to make sure Kamiya's all right, because she's clinging to him from behind. With a bright grin, he points out the clear sky and the amazing view, but she can only squeak a strained sound back, eyes shut tight like it's all too much. Her fear surges as she cranes her neck to peek down, and the dizzying drop hits her like a punch. The ground is a far-off chasm, and her mind immediately screams, "This is way too high." In pure terror, she clamps herself to his back, trembling hard, and he instantly gets it. She's terrified of heights. Luna hears the fear in her voice and tells Kalmia to let her descend, warning her not to strain herself. But Kalmia pushes back, trembling and still stubborn, insisting that since Raid hauled her here, she's going to tough it out and get used to it. Gerard chimes in, warning everyone not to push it too far, and Luna nods along, calling Kalmia the goddess. Then she decides they'll go on for now, just like Kalmia wanted, while the dragons keep blasting across the sky. With fresh resolve, Count's expression turns stone-hard as she clenches her fists and digs into Raid's tunic with all her might, knuckles going white from the strain. A heartbeat later, her voice cuts through the air and calls his name, excitedly telling him to look, bragging that her vision is finally clear and the view is downright beautiful. But he's not exactly relaxed because every time he tries to breathe, she's still squeezing his stomach tight, and now he needs her to loosen up. A jolt of embarrassment hits him as he realizes it's not just her arms locking him in place. Her whole body, even her chest, is pressed hard against his back. He tries to calm Kamiya as she clings to him in pure terror, sobbing that she can't let go or she'll fall, while he swears that whatever happens, he'll never loosen his grip on her arms. As Luna shakes with her, she calls down from above, warning Kamiya not to grip so hard, only for Kamiya, cheeks blazing, to snap back that Raid is her partner. The other dragons hover and watch, and one can't help but comment that Raid's having it rough. But the pressure hits too close, and Kamiya finally cracks. She swears she can't take any more. The pressure of the flight hits like a wrecking ball, and that quick hop through the sky ends with Kamiya slumping out cold. Raid catches her before she drops, and just like that, it's decided. From now on, Kamiya isn't riding with Raid anymore. Luna watches the whole thing with a razor-sharp, no-nonsense stare. Later, while they're finally catching their breath, Luna, now in her elven form, slips against Raid and mutters that if Kamiya has to cling to someone, it should not be him. Raid waves it off, insisting it wasn't that bad, but Luna keeps her voice low, saying the truth is, none of it was ever in her control. Her sudden closeness makes him snap his head around in shock, and as he blurts her name, his confusion spills out. She darts her eyes away and admits they haven't had much time for her lately. Then she leans in and asks, "So, do you hate being teammates with me?" He hesitates and she barrels right past it, confessing that yeah, this is a little selfish of her. "I'm the princess of dragons," she says, and she's never been denied a single thing she wanted. Then her hand settles gently on his chest as her words spill out. She spills her heart, admitting he's the only thing she's ever wanted at her side, but as long as she was stuck inside the divine dragon empire, she could never reach him. Now she's finally free, and now that they're together, she's aching to be as close to him as humanly possible. She even knows Kamiya doesn't feel the same way about him, but her own longing doesn't fade for a second. Her cheeks burned as she stared him down and blurted, asking if he could ever forgive her for being selfish. His face melts the moment he meets her eyes, and he reassures her request isn't selfish at all. He leans in with that steady promise. Partners are meant to do this for each other, and he'll gladly take her feelings in his hands. With a shy blush, Luna looked up at him, her heart pounding softly as she settled beside Faye after that emotional exchange. Then she whispered his name and poured out her real thanks. Not long after, the whole crew came rushing back to that village building, and there stood Rona and Mararia, waiting with bated breath, while gray clouds loomed overhead. The place was a public bathhouse. 2 entrances stood side by side, clearly tagged for men and women, while fresh towels sat stacked neatly inside, ready for whoever walked in. Raid plunged into the steamy outdoor bath, letting the scorching water melt the fatigue of their journey as he finally exhaled in relief. He sank into the steaming water, locked in deep thought about what he'd do next. Then, once his work was finally done, he started picturing how he could show Kamiya the world beyond the Dragon Nation, until sudden noise ripped his focus away, and he snapped his head around in shock. His thoughts got ripped apart the moment a familiar presence popped up, Kamiya, right there, and a weird wave of déjà vu hit him like a truck. She stood there completely nude, and Raid's gut dropped. Maybe her amnesia had wiped out her shame too. He snapped her name out loud, and she calmly said she couldn't read the sign by the entrance. Then she asked which hot spring it was, insisting the catfolk had told her about it, and when she admitted she'd watched him strip, she didn't hesitate, she just copied him. Right on cue, she let out a tiny sneeze, like the universe was mocking him, and Raid stared, stunned that even with amnesia, she still couldn't grasp the basics. He couldn't help wondering, was this really how the divine race operated? He shot up, cinched the towel around his waist, and told Kamiya to splash herself clean with a bucket before she stepped in. Then he laid it out. Hot springs usually split men and women, so he could go first and let her soak in peace. Kamiya snapped right back, refusing to have it not be fair to him. She met his gaze, her face set like stone, and told him, I've always trusted your common sense, so if you start spouting weird stuff again, it's going to be a real problem. He stared at this weird twist of fate, still stunned she was smiling and letting him teach her here of all places. She figured it was fine as long as Luna and anyone else didn't find out. Then right then, Kamiya yelped and cannonballed into the water, screaming that it was way too hot. They soaked in the spring beneath the open sky, then she spun toward Raid and asked, "Hey, did I really live in the heavens?" Raid nodded and the truth hit hard. Legends about it are everywhere, and yeah, she really did fall from the sky. She stared into the distance, lost in thought, trying to imagine what kind of world that place used to be. Her eyes snapped back to him and she asked what life at home felt like for him. Then it hit him. She was smiling, but the fact she couldn't remember, that had to be terrifying. He paused, weighed her question, and admitted that with his parents gone, and everything he'd lived through, his country didn't feel like home anymore. Then he snapped, "The sky dragons are my family, and wherever they fly is the place that matters to me." What? She leaned in, eyes locked like she'd finally cracked the code. "I get it," she said, smiling as it all clicked for him. Home is where his family is. She leaned in and asked if that meant the Dragon Nation was really his home. He nodded and said yes, remembering how they welcomed him when he got cast out, and every memory they'd lived through together. Then he declared with full heart that he loved the Dragon Nation, and that it was home. Her face brightened into a sweet, gentle smile, and a rosy blush crept across her cheeks. Then she looked at him and said, "That's wonderful, truly wonderful." She kept going, insisting that he loves everyone, and somehow everyone loves him right back. Raid snapped up at that, staring like, "Is that even true? Love might be too huge a word," while she pressed forward, eyes earnest, asking if it was really, truly real. Then it hit him, so many kinds of love, so many kinds of like, until his mind filled with one found family memory. Roanna laughing as they doused her with playful sprays of water, every cat spirit tribe member joining in beneath a sky where dragons soared overhead. Fresh out of his daydream, he turned to Kamiya and told her straight up to treat this place like it's her home too. Kamiya's smile warmed the moment as she admitted her wish. One day her homeland would be just as amazing as the Dragon Nation. He promised her everyone would welcome her with open hearts, calling them good people, good dragons too, then pushed her to dig deeper into the Dragon Nation until she could finally feel like she belonged, no matter if her memories came back or not. Kamiya was hit so hard by the sincerity that for a moment, she just couldn't find the words. Her doubts vanished into a blazing, determined smile. She agreed it was an amazing idea and swore she'd get to know the Dragon Nation even better. With a happy stretch, she told Ray to give her a proper tour the next day, even pushing past the border lines to explore. For a moment everything felt calm and planned, until Luna later stumbled on their shared bath and erupted with furious rage. In the middle of ancient, crumbling ruins, one lone figure sits still, staring into the void, while a crushing silence smothers the empty land. A faint smile flickers on his lips as he speaks to someone only he can see. Then he declares, loud and clear, that he's finally found them, and that the time is here to choose the fate of their divine tribe. After he says it, he shoots his hand forward, and a thick, dark sludge starts pooling on the stone floor, spreading out fast toward him. Shadowy liquid surged up from the ground, clumping together into a silent army of armored soldiers, then their eyes ignited with a chilling glow. He stares at his creations with a smug grin, declaring them a brand new race, closer to the gods than any human, then demands they kneel as his obedient servants, answering to no one but him and the demon gods. He steps up in front of the gathered crowd and with full ceremony declares their name, Dark Angel. Dark energy spits and crackles around him as he snaps out his very first command. "By the demon god Norlaris, lord of all demons, bring your forces to the land where the descendants of the holy dragon dwell, and drag back the god who's taken refuge there." What? He pours a slice of his power into them and gives them a clear go-ahead to wipe out anything, or anyone in their path, even when the enemy is a god. A sinister grin snaps onto his face as he slips one chilling condition into their destructive mission. Of course, the target child must be spared. All at once a brutal spike of pain rips through him. He gasps, grabs his head, and his face twists in pure agony as he blurts, "Is this my limit?" Confused, he can't understand why he's still hurting even after all this time. Way off beyond the demon god's throne, his brand new commander stands ready, cocky smirk and all, because the harder the mission gets, the more crushing that victory feels. They whirl toward the legion of dark angels hanging right behind them and bark the order to move out. Then, with a piercing shout, the commander rockets into the lead as the demonic soldiers blast into the sky. Meanwhile, in a calm forest, Aru suddenly yelps and snaps at Kamiya for grabbing her tail like that. Kamiya looks guilty and blurts out she couldn't help it. She just wanted to see if it was real, and Aru confirms, yep, it's the real deal, a demonic trait. From just a short distance away, Luna leans over to Raid and says Kamiya looks completely smitten with Aru. Raid grins because Aru's been acting like this since breakfast, and it's clear she just missed her shot to join them. He remembers right after Gerard's idea that they're showing Kami around the area near the Dragon Nation, and as he walks, he tells himself they should stop at the gorgeous lake ahead, imagining himself fishing with Gerard and Faye. When Luna finally hits the water's edge, she stops cold, because fresh footprints trail into the lake, and now she's desperate to figure out who or what left them. Raid shows up, staring at the footprints in the water that refuses to clear, and he instantly figures the person who messed with the lake is still lurking nearby, while Gerard beside him rumbles out a deep, guttural growl. His eyes snap wide as bubbles claw their way to the surface, then he erupts, screaming for everyone to back up from the lake right now. His scream slices the air, then the middle of the lake detonates in a violent geyser of water. From the boiling surf, a monstrous horse creature with slick fins and a writhing fishtail bursts up and screams like it's ripping the world apart. While everyone on the shore stares in shock, Raid spots it and freezes in pure horror, a kelpie. He studies the creature and the truth snaps into place. Kelpies are magical beasts that only thrive in crystal-clear water. Then he spots its grotesquely swollen belly, and dread hits like a punch. This thing didn't wander here by accident. It came to this lake to give birth. This hit like a switch in your brain. Those toppled trees and muddy water weren't a threat at all. They were the monster's panic as it dragged itself into labor, screaming in a churn of black, rippling lake water. The storm-battered water thrashes like it's furious, blasting a huge wave straight at the shore, while the dragons launch into the sky to grab a perfect view from above. Up in the air, Gerard warns they can't afford to get into a brutal brawl with the girls nearby, so he yells down at Raid, asking if he can slam a ceiling art to cage the beast, and Raid answers that he'll try. Without a second to waste, he snaps into action, and magical chains burst up from the water to clamp around the kelpie, locking it down. Then the creature screams in sharp pain as its furious thrashing gets pinned. He strains to keep the ceiling art steady, staring in awe at the kelpie's insane power, because even with its body bound, it still commands the water like it's nothing, and he can't forget how people say these creatures have unleashed countless floods when territorial feuds get ugly. Up on the rooftops, Luna scans the chaos brewing in the Dragon Nation and realizes one rampage like this could spell disaster, so she clenches her resolve and decides there has to be a way to get that thing out of the area. As she gathers power for a breath attack, Raid yells for her and Luna to hold up, because he knows an ancient dragon's direct hit can obliterate something massive, even a kelp-sized beast. Right before Luna can unleash her attack, Kiamiya lunges forward and begs, give her one moment to talk to the creature. She swears it's not evil, it's just terrified. Luna freezes, stunned, and demands how anyone could possibly reason with it. She shrugs and says a kelpie wouldn't even get our language anyway, but then she leans in and swears, I still think I can make it understand me, call it a gut feeling. She whips her gaze to Dragon Luna and begs, swearing she's the one who'll break through and persuade the restrained kelpie. Raid turns to Luna and says, let's trust Kalmia for now. Then he leans in, explaining that since she's from the divine tribe, she might actually talk to monsters. Luna snaps back that this plan is suicide, saying Kamia would be flattened in a heartbeat if the kelpie went trampling her. Ray nods hard, then vows she'll have everything ready so they can snatch her back the second it's go time. He whips around to Kalmia, barking that she better hold still. This is about to get rough. She can't even process it before he throws his power into the air, sealing art and serpent-binding chains. Chains cinch Kalmia and yank her off the ground, and from the top, Luna watches as Raid dips the suspended girl down toward the lake. Kalmia panics and screams his name, begging him to tell her there had to be another way. Iri squints from afar and calls out his plan, using bait from the divine tribe's daughter. Raid snaps back, saying he warned Kalmia it could get rough, and then he doubles down. This is the only way he can truly keep her safe. The girl hangs helplessly as the enraged kelpie thrashes her around, and Raid quietly tells a panicked Luna, don't worry, we'll yank her back the second it turns dangerous. The beast erupts in a furious roar, but Kami doesn't even flinch. He just smiles softly and asks, so, how are you feeling? She keeps talking with real empathy, straight up admitting that if it's tied up like this, there's no way it could be in a good mood. Meanwhile, Luna stands to the side, her face softening with worry. She blurted out an apology for grabbing it so fast, begged it to calm down, and promised they had no plans to hurt it for no reason. The kelpie stared right back, its fury finally starting to fade as it listened. She talks to the kelpie in a soft, calming voice, telling it everything's fine and that nobody here wants it hurt, and the kelpie's eye suddenly pops wide, because it's feeling something it's never felt before. To keep this sudden peace in place, she orders it to stay right where it's sitting. She flashes a quick signal to the dragons above, and right away they confirm everything's locked down below. Then the kelpie tucks itself down, whining as the magical chains keep it pinned in place. With the creature's hoof thudding into the earth, she lands right beside it, barely a whisper of movement, and in that instant, the light-binding chains unravel into nothing. From a safe distance, Faye and Luna flank her as Raid shouts, asking if it's safe now. Count swivels around and confirms everything's fine. She steps up to the Kelpie, lays a gentle hand on its head, and tells the others what she just figured out. Because the voice of the creature's heart reached her, coming from so far away it's almost unreal, just to give birth to its young, and it doesn't want anyone messing with it. He stares in pure shock, realizing that reading a monster's heart is an insane power, and then he can't stop wondering if this, plus the mind-blowing tone in her voice from before, is exactly what the divine trials are all about. Kalmia's thoughts get slammed to a stop when she feels the magic around them suddenly change. She whips back to the Kelpie and snaps, "What's wrong?" The creature's body tightens and strains like it's bracing for impact. The realization hits Raid like lightning, and he immediately tells the others to back off, because he knows the creature is about to be born any second. Kalmia spots it too, eyes wide with pure shock. She can't look away as the Kelpie brings forth a tiny, dark, serpentine baby, slithering into the world. After that brutal encounter, Mother Kelpie coaxes her newborn, still barely breathing, up onto the lake's shore, nudging it with careful, trembling care. The mother nuzzles her child with pure warmth, and with a quick shake of its head, the tiny creature wobbles up onto its feet for the very first time. As she watches the tender moment, Kamia grins, because even monsters are living, feeling beings just like us, and Raid stays quiet, nodding along as he agrees. She whips around to Luna and says, "Let the mother and her child stay by the lake for a while." Then she leans in, orders Luna to keep those ancient dragons from causing trouble, and adds, "Because this one crawled in from another land, I'll make an exception. I'll tell my father later." Luna agrees on the spot. Once everything's settled, the crew starts to head out. Raid grabs the moment and thanks Luna for saving them, then suggests they go back to the Dragon Nation. As they walk, Kamia steals a glance at him, and her smile drops into something serious. Kamia shoots him a serious look and asks why she's staring at him like that. A soft sadness creeps in as he brings up her parents, wondering out loud if they're the kind people. Raid, startled but not shaken, quickly tells her he's certain they are. She tells him that watching the mother Kelpie's fierce devotion hit her like a lightning bolt, because if anyone ever tore her own child away, that creature would have raged straight across the whole world to the Dragon Nation to drag them back. Her thoughts slam inward and she starts questioning everything about her own fate, like, what if her parents truly tossed her out of the celestial realm and are still tearing the world apart, desperately hunting for her? And if the divine tribe is really as unstoppable as Raid claims, then why haven't they found her yet? He listens without blinking, then speaks. He admits nobody has a clue what really happened when she arrived, or even whether the divine tribe can track her down, and he points to the way she looked the first time, falling out of the sky like a blazing star. He keeps talking and then drops the bombshell. If she'd slammed into the ground at that speed, she'd have died, divine tribe or not, yet she's out cold, because someone's magic is dragging her descent, slowing her down so she won't smash into the earth. He wraps up his explanation and insists that only someone who truly loves her could have handled power that enormous. As soon as she hears it, a shy blush blooms across her cheeks. Then she breaks into a bright, happy smile, clearly loving the idea. 3 months fly by, then during a stroll, Roanna spots Akamia huffing and panting, and she tells her straight up that she's got to build her stamina fast. As Kamia finally catches her breath, she pauses and scans her own chaos. She's used to life in the Dragon Nation, but those memories are still missing, like a door that won't open. Above it all, the Emperor's threat still hangs in the air, and it's what's pushed Raid to dig for answers inside the Holy Dragon Empire. Her thoughts get yanked aside when she sees the young Kelpie with Rona, and she admits it. Yeah, she'd been terrified over her amnesia, but watching the little one grow up safe fills her with pure joy, like she even caught a glimpse of it smiling. She leans into this fresh outlook and chooses to see the good, because if the happy memories won't come back, then the painful ones won't either. Then she turns to Milfy and asks, "Hey, since you're a water spirit too, don't you feel something warm watching the Kelpie's kid grow?" What? Milfy freezes for a beat, confessing she doesn't know what she's supposed to feel, because monsters tore her homeland apart, and that kind of pain makes it nearly impossible for her to love anything about her own past. Roanna nods along with Kami's point, and she's smiling as she says that every kid deserves a loving chance to grow, no matter their race, plus, that baby is downright adorable with it. Once they finally wrapped up their talk, Kamia warned, "Let's head back before the rain hits," and Rona snapped it into a dare, "Race me home." So Kamia instantly grinned and agreed. Her acceptance gets Rona and Milfy practically jumping with eager looks, but Kamia, right after saying yes, starts regretting it fast, her stamina already sputtering. She jerks out of her thoughts when the mother Kelpie suddenly screams, rearing back in alarm, and whatever it's warning about is something lurking just past the water's surface. That sudden shriek snaps Milfi, Kalmia, and Roanna into full alert mode, faces freezing in shock, then tightening with pure apprehension. When the shock finally drains away, dread rushes in and Kamia senses something off in the air, something unsettling. Roanna turns to Milfi and asks if she's okay, and even though Milfi insists she's fine, her voice slips as she admits she can't shake the bad feeling about what's coming. She snaps into action at once, summoning a bow forged from pure light, no hesitation, no doubt. Whatever shows up next, she's ready to cut it down. Right out of the sky, the thing that's been haunting them finally drops in, dark, winged creatures slamming down like an ominous rain. As they crash down, my mind is racing. She remembers those demon raids from before, the one that hit Aru in particular, where monsters with magical power equal to an ancient dragon tore everything apart. And still, what's in front of her hits like a brick, there's no denying it. The thought that creatures this powerful are roaming around like they own the place makes her tremble. Truth hits her like a punch because it's not just a handful. It's a whole winged army, and terror claws at her as she realizes every single one of them carries magic power that matches, and might even dwarf, an ancient dragon. Kamio stares at that crushing force, wondering if it's gone after Mother Kelpie and her baby, but the truth is in the weird pacing. Nothing looks like it's moving to strike the lake. Rona snaps in protest, her instincts flaring as a rotten stench rolls off the people. Kaemiya proves himself right as the dark figures suddenly veer off, terror hits his face, and then he realizes it, they're the target. The dark angels are coming straight for them. A creepy dark mist tears into the sky over the land of dragons, and Raid freezes in panic, staring hard as his mind scrambles for answers. What is it even trying to be? Luna stands right beside him, feels the truth in her bones, and warns him with a shake, because the magical power pouring off it is downright terrifying. Realizing the danger hits right now, he snaps the whole thing as a disaster and starts barking orders, telling the girls to evacuate to safety and shout the warning to everyone they meet. Then he turns to the dragons and orders them to rush straight to the scene, while he sprints off to alert the Dragon King, promising he'll catch up in no time. With the instructions finally ringing out, he launches into a full sprint, and one frantic thought slams into his head. Lady Kamiya and the other two girls slipped into the forest and still haven't come back. Same forest, and the danger is already on their heels. A dark angel in black armor with shadowy wings dives straight for Rona, Milfi, and Kalmia. They huddle on the ground and Kalmia clenches her breath, praying in silence that they'll make it. Right before the creature can strike, a volley of blazing energy blasts rips through the air and slams straight into its position. Blaster shots slammed into the dark angel's armor, but they bounced off the dark plating like pebbles, shattering uselessly while the armor kept dropping without a slowdown. Its charge stays unbroken, winged warrior still tearing through the air, sword held out for the kill. Down on the ground, Aru and Milfi stare as its terrifying speed crashes toward them. Without thinking twice, Aru blurts out Rona's name, and right away he's sure she knows exactly what to do as Rona throws a tiny object straight at the girl. Right when it snaps in place, the dark angel's sword comes crashing down, and she whips up a blazing wall of light from her hands to smash the attack dead in its tracks. With her defenses up, Aru drops softly onto the forest floor, her face locked in ruthless determination as she squares off against the enemy. A winged dark angel hits the water with a violent splash, pure menace in the air, and Kamiya and Rona get slammed back by the impact, while Milfi crumples on the ground, exposed and helpless. Kamiya's face turns into a mix of shock and terror as she tears the silence apart, screaming Milfi's name. Terror pins Kamiya in place, she can only stare. Panic screams through her head, I have to help. But her body won't listen, shaking out of control as the dark angel's lone, glowing eye locks onto them from the shadows of the health. Beside her, Roanna spills the crushing dread they feel, wondering if this is really how it ends, dying here with no answers. Then the dark figure surges forward and hope sparks bright in Roanna's eyes. Milfi isn't defeated yet. She can't stop thinking about Milfi's hidden feelings. This young elf may never say it out loud, but she's grown to treasure the Dragon Nation like it's the real home she was robbed of. So for one reason only, she won't let this new home or the people inside it get taken from her. Milfi trains relentlessly day after day, refusing to ever feel that same devastating loss again. Roanna's fear-bred determination is what makes her grin with ironclad conviction, believing Milfi will push through. Then she shouts her friend's name, her voice blazing with faith. Milfi rips herself up from the churned water, eyes blazing with pure resolve. She declares she's not done yet. Kamiya watches and her own hope surges back. Then Milfi swears, solemn and unshakable, that she'll protect her home and every person she holds dear. With her vow, a massive power snaps awake. Right from the depths behind her, a colossal water dragon erupts, a spirit of pure churning liquid. It lifts its head and hammers the air with a silent roar at the flock of dark angels spilling from the sky, an unstoppable body made from her need to protect. At her command, the massive water spirit rockets ahead, blasting up into the sky like a living cannonball packed with sheer, crushing power. It spits a roaring torrent from its mouth, an ultra-pressure blast that tears through the air, crashes into the squadron of dark angels, and wipes them out in a watery deluge. Watching her friends unleash an incredible display, then his face lit up with hope. She was convinced Milphy's power was insane, and if this kept going, victory was right around the corner. From the sky, right as the colossal water spirit came crashing in, its opponent, the commander of the dark host, just watched with a smug little smirk like this was nothing but a cute magic trick. With a brutal surge, the water yanked forward and lunged, blasting a tidal wave of power straight into a sphere of dark energy. Boom, everything lit up in a blinding flash, then mist exploded into the air. With spray raining down all around her, Milphy froze in place, eyes blazing wide, stunned by the moment that had just shattered everything. She dropped to her knees, voice cracking in heartbreak as she stared at the impossible. Every last dark angel in the swarm stood unscathed, totally untouched. Above them, their commander hovered and sneered, praising how expertly she'd controlled so much water using nothing but surface dwellers. The moment the sight hit her, terror ripped through Kalmia, her hopeful look shattered into wide-eyed shock. Her shock cracked open into a dawning, dreadful truth. When she locked eyes on the commander, her weird gift kicked in and she could feel the flow of magical energy around him, and now she couldn't stop asking, what was that thing really? The answer crashed into her like a cold wave, because the thing in front of her wasn't just dark, it was absolute, bottomless void. She realized it wasn't really a person at all, it was an absolute creature, wearing a human shape like a costume, dripping with the stench of death itself. Then the commander locked eyes with her and demanded, straight up, whether she was from the divine tribe, while Kamya just stood there, trembling, because the idea of someone carrying that kind of power left her mind spinning. The Dark Angel commander shot Kalmia a small, knowing smile and answered the question she didn't even say out loud, dumbfounded that she'd be the one to ask if they came from the divine tribe. Then they leaned in with absolute certainty and declared it. Yes, they were divine tribe just like her. The commander thrusts out a hand and beckons her to talk somewhere proper, the celestial realm, and before she can even answer, they rise off the ground, ready to float off with Kamya. Milphy erupts in defiance, refusing to let them have her friend. She screams that she'll never lose her home or her companions again, and she charges forward to cut them off. The commander snaps around in an instant, staff leveled, rushing to meet Milphy's charge head-on, while the elf girl's eyes blow wide with shock at how fast that counterattack hits. With a lightning-fast, brutal swing, the commander slams Milphy, blam, and a shockwave tears through the air as Raid erupts, shouting her name in panic. The hit blasts her backward and dark energy snaps and crackles at the impact like lightning, while Kami and Rona just stare, utterly frozen in terror. She stares at her trembling hands, whispers an apology that slips out on its own, and the brutal truth hits her. She's powerless. Right as she's about to drop, Raid rockets in and catches her in his arms. Then he barks her name, his face hard when he realizes she risked everything to save her friends, and in his grip, his sword erupts into a blinding, brilliant glow. He gently shoves her behind him, surges forward to meet the commander, and lifts the glowing blade. Raid declares it's finally his turn to protect everyone, then orders the commander to stay away from Elphic. The commander's calm crashes to pieces, his eyes blow wide as he stares at the sword in Raid's grip, stunned beyond belief, while right behind him Milphy shouts his name, her voice packed with relief and pure shock. The standoff erupted and the fight's chaos only got worse. Winged monstrosities crashed down like a storm, and Kamya snapped out orders as she roared at an unseen ally to whisk Milphy and Rona to safety, insisting she'd stay behind to help. Just before the creatures could catch up, the red dragon Gerard ripped through the sky and slammed into the swarm, roaring like a battle command, telling everyone, "Leave these monsters to me." His draconic allies' intervention bought him a heartbeat, but his eyes stayed locked on Gerard's aerial clash, until his opponent's voice sliced through the chaos and demanded to know why he wasn't watching the fight. He didn't wait for a reply, straight into the commander's attack he went, lunging forward and smashing his staff in a huge arc, and the Raid reacted immediately, snapping up his glowing sword to block the strike. Their weapons slammed together, bursting into a blinding flash. Sparks flew as the commander's staff shattered and cracked under the blade's divine energy, the shockwave roaring through the strike and staggering his footing. He planted his feet and stared ahead, eyes blazing with shock and steel as the raw power surged through his weapon. Two fighters froze in a brutal stalemate, until the commander's weapon began to rattle violently against the unwavering glow of the Raid's swords. His eyes locked onto the blade in his grip, and it all clicked. This thing wasn't just shining for nothing. The sword's got a demon-slaying gift inside it, Readin, a blessing that flares up the moment it's near the demon tribe. That hit him like a spark, and Raid fired off a straight question. Are you the demon tribe's god? The commander grinned, saying he was none other than the demon god, Nariris. Then he snapped his focus to the glowing blade. Nariris immediately recognized it, the holy dragon's power, Edelgrepus. He couldn't believe someone could be met with that kind of might like this, yet he sneered at Raid anyway, brushing him off with a cold reminder that in the end he was just human. As Raid parses the demon god's words, Roanna blurts out her confusion. Why would their lord god hand a child to a guy like him? Raid freezes, stunned, and only manages to repeat the phrase, Lord God, stuck on what that even means. The title points straight to Triteria, the goddess who rules over all gods, the almighty sovereign the whole world knows. It hits him like a thunderclap. If Nariris really is zeroing in on Kamiya, then Triteria must have sent that child to the dragon nation on purpose, to slip her out of the demon god's clutches. Nariris snaps his thoughts apart and calls him out by his full title, the dragon knight and the hero who killed the demon king. And right then the demon god declares he's not letting Raid slip away, leaving the young man stunned. Nariris leans in and admits he's fully aware that Raid butchered his precious demons while the demon king was being subjugated. Then he drops a cryptic bomb. These strange turns have trapped me in a bind, and Raid pushes for answers. He shuts the question down cold, saying he doesn't have time to explain. Then a roaring surge of dark energy bursts from his body, and the stairs get hit as everyone nearby gapes in stunned, wide-eyed shock at the power on display. The pressure crushes everything. He knows if he hesitates for even a second, it's instant annihilation. So he bites down on his fear and fires his one shot, the secret technique Yaden Okami, because he can only use it once, and all he needs is a single crack in the chaos, just long enough to strike. Suddenly a terrifying roar rips through the air. Gerard barrels forward, shouting his name, and the dragon flings a huge, pitch-black chunk straight at the demon god, carving out the exact opening this raid needed. And now he's screaming as he grabs that chance. He rockets forward, sword raised to the sky, and detonates his ultimate move, seating Yara with one brutal secret technique, Yara no Kami. He screams, pouring every ounce of power into the slash as he barrels straight at Noriris. But that crushing strike gets stopped dead in its tracks. The demon god snaps the blade right between his gloved fingers and freezes the attack with effortless ease. He looms behind Raid, palm resting on the kid's shoulder like it's nothing, while the sword stays locked back under control, effortlessly. Then he shrugs in that calm, almost bored voice and tells him a simple dragon tamer shouldn't push himself so hard. Those words hit Raid like lightning, and his eyes blew wide with pure disbelief as Raid wrestles for air against the unbreakable grip. Nariris leans in, eyes locked, voice dropping to a chilling whisper, saying that if a strike this brutal can bring down a god, humanity would have already seized the divine throne long ago. Raid snaps into motion and finds himself a few paces away, like the world just let go. The pressure vanishes and he stares, stunned, realizing it wasn't mere speed at all. It feels like Noriris has been right behind him since the beginning. He clenches his resolve, swears he's not done yet, and grips his sword, pulling every ounce of strength from his journey and blasting it into his next move as he pierces the dragon's shield. With a roar that shook the air, he swore he'd protect everyone and slammed forward in a full sprint, then unleashed the Holy Dragon Empire's combat arts, a lightning-quick arcane kick called the Dragonwing Waltz. Nariris snaps his kick to a dead stop. Same second his leg comes swinging, then catches it one-handed like it's nothing, wearing an unbothered, almost amused look the whole time. His eyes flare wide again, and pure disbelief hits him like a punch. A sharp blast of energy rips out from Nariris' grip, and Ray yelps in agony, while the demon god smirks and says he's done playing around for now, but the real job still isn't finished. He still has to hunt that child. While he talks, he spots fresh blood leaking from the corner of his own mouth. Then he drops his gaze to his hand, the one that caught that kick, now bruised and blackened, and for the first time, surprise flashes across his face. He staggers and dark blood spurts from the corner of his eye, where that tiny hit finally connected. Before he can even catch his breath, Raid crashes into him, kicking at his staff, then freezes, utterly baffled when that strike gets shrugged off with ease. He lunges back, eyes wide, trying to wrap his head around what just happened, because he can't make sense of how the demon-slaying blessing even worked when it only triggers through direct contact with his sword. It hits him before he unleashes his Yaden Okami technique. He covered himself in the magical power of Reden, the demon's slaying blessing. Right then, Nariris clicks into the same realization. He knows the demon-slaying blessing slipped through Raid's body and somehow reached him, and that even this tiny, indirect touch is exactly what's trapped him in his current state. He stares at Raid with ice-cold resolve, already deciding that the only way to end this mess is to kill him. Raid fires back, grilling him about Amikazuchi, and when he doesn't get the answers he wants, he pushes harder, saying only that man's bloodline could ever swing a blade like this, then snaps, so who is Noriris? Before he can even finish, Narira blinks in and slams a flat hand against Raid's chest, his eyes blow wide with pure shock. He unleashes his power and orders Ray to shine like a star in the dark. Then a brutal blast of energy erupts from his palm, blasting an asteroid's fury that engulfs the dragon tamer in an instant.